Wait, let me go live and click first. Facebook. That's fine. Don't end. It's going to start to mute it. Okay, let me just try going live on Facebook.
Can't Dennis just start talking? Just he can start it, because then I can drive so long and get to my office. It's not necessary for me to start and then he starts, please.
Yeah, just technical difficulties. Yeah, but okay, we sorted that. We're all good. We're just gonna go on Facebook.
Dennis, you can just start the proper introduction. Then I don't have to come in and give over to you. You can just start and give over to press. Is that fine?
Okay, so I'm muting everyone for now.
Oh, Dennis.
Yeah, can we all mute our mics?
Dennis, are you hearing me?
Okay.
Dennis, can we start?
Good afternoon, everyone. Guests that are here, members of the Alliance groups, PBICT, SABISPA, and YEA. We are starting our session today where we are going to deal with how do we unplug blockages disturbing the flow of innovation and transformation. So without wasting any further time, we are going to hand over to Mr. Dennis Rolls. He is the General Secretary of PBICT, to introduce the panelists and take the program forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Good day, everyone. Thanks for joining us in this live stream and for sacrificing some time this Sunday, as always. We're about to start a new program, one of three we've been conceptualizing for a while. The first one we tried out was the workshops, and we felt some success. We're happy with the format of the workshops. We think they add intrinsic value to our members and beyond that. And then we also sampled our master classes, and those master classes also showed very tactical value for people that would be able to take advantage of the information they receive pretty much the next day. So that's the idea behind the workshops, is that after watching a workshop, you should be able to pick up a skill or decide on a career path, and ensure that you're on the right career path. However, today we're doing our first fast forward session, a very exciting one. This one's going to be fueled with fire. If you have noticed that this particular one, the name Fast Forward, really is part of ensuring that whatever conversations happen on this platform, we will be looking for solutions, not identifying problems. We identified the problem already in the theme, This particular platform will be driven by the president. He will every now and again, whenever we have the session, until we find a formula in terms of which day, how many times a month we have them, the president will identify a problem, a big problem, and then invite very progressive panelists to discuss what the solutions could be and how soon these solutions can be implemented also. The president, this is his platform, this is his brainchild. We're here to just facilitate and utilize the little neurons that we have and ensure that all these conversations that we have behind closed doors and when we meet and during prize and during rallies and all of these type of things, we bring in those conversations here, those revolutionary conversations, we bring in them here. So we will allow the president to give us a keynote on the particular problem, and then he will then move over to the panelists and then pose these questions, direct them to every panelist, because every panelist here has a field of speciality and they specialize in specific fields. So it's important that although we have one thing, it's still, that particular problem is still prevalent across fields. So I'd like to introduce the president. He'll be doing the keynote today, and then later the discussion will commence. And we really hope you guys will find this very, very valuable. And I'd like to hand over to you, President. Thank you very much. And thanks for everyone who's joining us on the live stream. And those who are joining us post live stream, please share, start viewing parties for people to get hold of this information. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Comrade Nopala. Maybe let me start by welcoming my panelists, and thank you for taking the time to join this discussion today. This is, like SGA said, it is our first attempt at the fast forwarding session where we are talking about fast solutions, things that need to be implemented now so that we move forward in terms of ensuring that transformation is taking place and innovation is thriving in the country. Let me also welcome those that are with us now that are viewing. I understand that we are very busy, but also those that will be joining us post this video. We hope that this is going to be valuable to you and that the solutions that the panelists come up with today, that you really consider looking at them and how they can be implemented. Will also be available. We'll share contact details of the panelists so you can engage them. But keep your eye also on the PBICT website, as well as the SABISPA and the Youth Economic Alliance website, because as an alliance, we are here and we're saying that we are here to transform. So in the panel, I have President MOTSAMAI. Can you greet the audience, President MOTSAMAI, so they know who I'm talking about? Your mic, President MOTSAMAI. Yes.
Can everybody hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for making time this afternoon. I hope everybody is keeping safe, everybody is washing hands, and everybody does own a mask. Afternoon.
Thank you very much. We also have with us a very dear comrade of ours, and Comrade Umbulelo is our socio-economic activist and one of the people that has inspired a lot of what is happening and has inspired a lot of the SMMEs. If you go anywhere in the sector now, you'll hear a lot about Umbulelo. If you haven't heard about him, you'll definitely know him after today. Comrade Umbulelo, can you please greet everyone?
Good afternoon, everyone, and in the spirit of Professor Lumumba, I want to greet you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade Umbulelo. Victor is one of our co-founding members of PBICT and one of the very progressive comrades. especially driving innovation in the space. It's been tasked in PBICT to drive innovation, just like President MOTSAMAI is leading the conversation on the one, on the conversation on connectivity, and we've seen him before, and he needs not much introduction. But I want to introduce Victor. Victor, can you greet everyone?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I hope you'll be inspired and motivated, and really also be very, very energetic in terms of engaging with your children or sharing this information with your children going forward. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much, Victor. We've seen she's done an introduction, our advocate and our chairperson, but also one of the very progressive people in the space who's also serving our interests in the BE sector, ICT sector council. Our chairperson, Steph. Our chairperson is busy delivering food parcels. She will be joining us, but she's also part of the panelists. We've already met our SG. Now, what I'm going to do, fellow comrades here in the panel, this is our discussion. This is our discussion. And I will share with you some sentiments and some of the things that we're looking at, just to give what is happening in the sector in line with the transformation, the innovation, and the lack thereof. So I want to introduce a topic to you. If you'll allow me to just share my screen quickly. All right. So I hope, comrades, you can see my screen. Can everyone see my screen?
We can see it, President.
All right, thank you. So, comrades, I've asked you not to prepare anything because I want the conversation and the responses. I want them coming from the heart, and I want them coming from the experience, and we are talking off the cuff today. This we're doing jointly with very progressive movements, PBICT, SABISPA, and Youth Economic Alliance. So our topic today, comrades, is how do we unplug blockages disturbing the flow of innovation and transformation? So clearly in there, we can already see that there is a drive for innovation, there is a drive for transformation. But what you are saying is that those are blocked and they need to be unplugged. And they are stopping the flow, and that flow is the bloodline of SMMEs, is the bloodline of professionals, is the bloodline of progress, every African. Today we are sitting in a country under lockdown. There are people that are worse off than what we are right now, and those are the people that are in the underserviced areas, people that don't have connectivity. But if we have to go right back, President MOTSAMAI, to the beginning, when Vodacom came to this country, when MTN was established, when Telkom was established, they had a responsibility of making sure that those people are connected today, and those people today are unconnected. What is sad and disheartening, most of all, is that we have children that have a constitutional right to education. They are being denied that opportunity and that right, and they are being denied by telcos, and this is a reality. They are denying those children their constitutional right. And this is why we say that we need to start having these hard talks. Now, over and above all of those things, we want to look and say that as a progressive movement and as a progressive alliance, how do we unplug the blockages that are disturbing the flow of innovation and transformation? I will be posing questions to you, and to those that are with us on the panel right now, you will be also given opportunities to add and also ask questions, the ones that are live. But post this as well, we will be continuing to get a more and more and further engagement direct to the problem. Now, I want to go back to remind everyone that we are doing all of this under the program that we call Steamie. We have not diverted or deviated from it. We are still talking in the context of the fourth industrial revolution, and specifically, we are talking in Steamie. And when we defined Steamie the last time, we said that we've got science, technology, engineering, maths, arts, innovation, and we've got entrepreneurship. And we're saying that those put together are the solutions of this country. We're saying that that is what we should be focusing on. We should be talking about the science, earth science, environmental. We should be talking about space. We don't know where we're going. Pretty soon, the world will be too much for us to live in. We'll need to start exploring and going to space and start looking for other solutions out there. We're saying that your social science, life science, physical, formal, all of those sciences. So all of those put together then make up Steamie. So this is what we are looking at. And again, I'm going to share this presentation until we all see, understand, and live Steamie. So in your spaces of science, we've identified things like alternate currencies, visual science, smart atmospheric control, wealth creation, all of those things. We're looking at them in the area of science. So when you talk economics, economics is a formal science. If you're talking politics, it's political science. We need to start talking things within those areas. And once we start having structured conversation, structured discussion, structured solutions, following this model, we believe that we can make a huge change and a huge impact in this country. Your technology, engineering need no introduction, as well as your maths. We need to be starting to talk those things. So whether we're talking academia, we're talking about government, we're talking society, when we're talking as industry, we should be talking about Steamie in each and every one of those. So that is the driving force behind what we are doing and the ultimate objective that we would like and everyone to rally behind. Now, my panelists, for today's conversation, I want to start with a simple topic. What is transformation? Now, if we understand and we have a common understanding of what transformation means to us, then only we can start having conversations moving forward on transformation. Now, a lot of times, I think that in this country, we've missed the boat when you come to talk of transformation. I do not understand why in a project or in a program that aims to achieve transformation, why do you have people that have never been negatively impacted by transformation? Those people will never come up with positive ways of or solutions of transforming the country. These are realities that we need to face. That's an unfortunate truth. If you have never been poor, you'll never come up with a solution for poor people. If you've never been rich, you'll never come up with a solution for rich people. So why do we allow for rich people to come up with solutions for poor people? Why do we allow for people that don't need transformation to come up with transformation solutions for people that need transformation? Transformation comes from the heart. It's you and where you come from. There are things that you are disinterested in. Personally, I'm not interested in being a capitalist. I'm not interested in being a monopoly of anything. Not in this world and not in this lifetime. So I cannot come up with solutions of how I can monopolize something, or cannot engage in a conversation of how do we monopolize a particular thing, President MOTSAMAI. We cannot, because we don't belong in that. That's not our mindset, that's not who we are. Then why, Mbulelo, are we having people talking transformation, people that have never suffered under apartheid, people that are not suffering now to get a business opportunity, people that have all the capital, they have all the land, they have everything, but yet we put them on the table to talk about transformation. We are saying that let us transform this country, let us share the economy, and these are people that are monopolizing it. Then what are they doing? Sitting on transformation. And these are hard talks, and these are things that we need to start talking about. So when I delved into this and I looked at the transformation, I said to myself, okay, so what is transformation? So we understand transformation. Just one second, please. So we understand transformation as the act of transforming, right? It's an act of transforming, of the state of, or the state of being transformed, right? So this is what transformation is, right? It's an act of transforming, and it's the state of being transformed. Now, I want to know one thing here, comrades, when you start responding, engaging on this here, and you need to make me, educate me on this. How do you transform from a state of being a have to a state of being a have-not? Because the haves want to transform from a state of have-not to a state of being has. So how does it reverse? And how do you sit on a table and be able to conversate and come up with solutions that are going to be bringing more people on the table, that you're already being sharing a huge feast, and that everyone else is just being having the leftovers? So how do you sit on that table and have that? So these are the conversations that we need to have, right? Now, those people that are in physics will tell you that transformation is a change in an atomic nucleus to a different nuclide. And they will give you formulas and measurements and everything that, and all the different laws of physics and the laws of nature that then talk to this particular transformation from an atomic nucleus to a different nuclide. But give those to the people that are in science. We're not going to delve deep about it. I'm a technology guy, right? What is closer to me is mathematics, right? So if you look at geometry, geometry refers to transformation, right? It says transformation refers to the movement of an object in a coordinated plane. So how does this thing move left and right, up and down? And this is something that then intrigued me, that wow. So all of these are talking about a particular transformation, but it's saying that transformation can actually be measurable. If we look at your International Human Index, Human Development Index, they look at different parameters to tell you that South Africa, you are rated number 100 and something on the Human Development Index. They will tell you that South Africa, you are the most untransformed country because the gap between the absolutely wealthy and to the poorest person is too vast and wide. And the majority of your population is still living under the poverty belt. We classify ourselves as the middle class, as earning 18,000 rand. But everywhere else in the world, that particular cap is actually poor. So these are the kind of things that we need to be looking at. So there is this coordinated plane that we need to look at, which will then say that this is where we are in terms of transformation. Then I said, okay, fine, but that is not actually really talking to us as South Africa. But how do we as South Africans translate or see transformation? So we say, it's the transformation of society. It's the transformation of society where we are moving from apartheid to an inclusive society. That is how we define it. How are we moving from apartheid to an inclusive society? Now, we may think that apartheid is gone, and we may be convinced, and we may convince each other that it is gone. It is not. It is not. We know very well that the majority of the poor people during the apartheid was black people, such is the case now. The majority of people that were disadvantaged and the majority of people that were excluded was the black people, such is the case now. There is a very few privileged people that have access to these opportunities, very few. And those few, we cannot then claim and say that black people have been transformed. We are not. We do not own land during apartheid. We do not own land now. We do not control the economy during apartheid. We do not control the economy now. So when we are looking at transformation of the society, moving from apartheid to an inclusive society, we then need to ask ourselves a question. Are we inclusive? Are we included now as society? Now, if we do not have a coordinating plane that will tell us and gauge us where are we in terms of transformation, then we are in trouble. Then we are in deep trouble, because we are going to keep on convincing ourselves and lying to ourselves and making believe that we are transformed when actually we are not. We are going to continue lying to ourselves, thinking that we are heading to the right direction, but whereas we are actually lying to ourselves. Now, comrade, I've come up with a very simple model that you'll see here as I was thinking about this. How do we then put everything together? So if you have to look at this, the two things that we want to achieve is we want to have just one sec, please. There you go, my laser pointer, yes. Right, so if we are looking at this model, right, which we call a transformation coordinating plane. Now this now starts to tell us where we are. Once again, you will see that we are using the ends of Steamie to come up with this particular framework. So we need socio-political transformation and we need economic transformation. We need to move from a state of being exclusive to a state of being inclusive. A state from being exclusive to a state of being inclusive, both horizontally and vertically. The unfortunate part is that we are not starting from the center here, but we are starting from the time of apartheid. And where we want to be is we want to be here. We want to have a socially and politically inclusive society or South Africa, but also economically inclusive. This is where we are heading. And we are coming from the bottom left quadrant, which is the time of apartheid. So fine, all well and good. So what have we actually achieved? The key things that we've achieved since the beginning of apartheid, right? We've got political freedom, the right to vote, the right to be in government and to change laws and. But our laws are still based on apartheid laws. Our constitution is still very apartheid friendly. Have we ever declared apartheid as a crime to humanity as South Africa and in our constitution? So that everything that was done during apartheid, we start from 1994 and we start to fix it, moving backwards, right up until the beginning. So all we have done is we have went one notch up on the political freedom, but we are not moving to the right towards economic freedom. Yes, we had some improvements in service delivery. We no longer have those bucket systems. We have people with water in their houses. We've built RDP houses and. That has improved us socially. That's what it has done. We still has not improved us economically. I would have said that it has improved us economically, but in construction, your big five and the people that built these infrastructures during the 2010 World Cup, how many black people and black construction companies actually built that? Very little. We've got fiber rollout MOTSAMAI right now. How many black people built that? How many black companies are building and owning that fiber? Very little. We are still not moving to the right. We refuse to move to the right. Then we had a lot of initiatives which that have got affirmative action. Fine, now we've got CEOs that are black and every one of them gets attacked. We've got managers, yes, affirmative action, disappointment, that way. We've got BEE, this and that. All they have really just done is just take us one step to the right. Now, there's still a lot of work. If it has taken us 20 years to move 3 steps up and 1 step to the right, how much longer is it going to take us to reach there? How many generations? Our children are going to suffer just as much as we're suffering, if not worse. Their children's children will still be suffering. So it will take us another 100 to 500 years just for us to get to where we need to be. It therefore calls for a time to say that we need to speed up the transformation process, moving to the right and moving out of this apartheid quadrant, this red quadrant. We are still living here. We are still here. We can think in any other way and convince ourselves that we are anywhere in those quadrants. We are far from them. We are very far from them. And if anyone thinks or believes that we are outside of this quadrant, then that person is living in a dream. That person, that particular person is living in a dream. That person needs to come down to reality and face the reality. And the reality is that we are so much untransformed and we are so far from anything. So this is what we're looking at, comrade. Then we say that let us look at people that are in the ICT sector and let us just see what is happening. Then I've painted this canvas, comrades, right? So this canvas has got its highs and lows, and you've got the different key sectors or sections in the sector. Otherwise, the key activities, the key economic drivers, the key opportunity drivers, right? Now, I want us, MOTSAMAI, to look at telecoms, and this is particularly where I would like you and Umbulelo to dig deep in your responses and in your provision of solutions. The telecoms industry, in terms of ownership as Black people, African in particular, very little of us own that telecoms. Vodacom is not ours, MTN is not ours, but Telkom is not ours. None of them are ours. The only ones that are bringing us there is Broadband Infraco, that's government owned, and it's Centec, that is government owned. And it's little air pockets of SMMEs like your Larrys, like your Rutsanis, that own infrastructures. People like your Klagas, all of those people, the Busi, those are the people that own the little infrastructure. There is a problem there. In terms of opportunities being given to Black people to build network infrastructure and funding to even fund Black SMMEs, African in particular, it's still very low. All these funding agencies do not fund our people because they do not want us to be here, right at the top. And this is where we should be focusing on now. Government, in terms of the resources, in terms of funding and everything, should be focusing on the telecoms and on connectivity, as we've been saying over and over again. Now, when we move to the next one, when we look at equipment manufacturing, Victor, I want to look at equipment manufacturing and software manufacturing. And I also want Mulelo and I want MOTSAMAI to also look in the space, as well as DENIS. The cameras that we're using, the equipment, the software that we're using, the focus, once again, is very little. There is so much innovation and so much solutions that have been built by our SMMEs, and yet government doesn't open itself to be a market. Very little is done to ensure that our people get those opportunities. Very little funding and very little focus on this. But yet, if you have to look at where are we getting this, all the software and this technology internationally, it's coming from all over on both of them. It's worse in software. And government should be focusing on making sure that the industrialization programs, Black industrialist programs, we are looking at software as a manufacturing. And we should be looking at manufacturing of IT equipment in terms of government and focusing and funding such initiatives. But we are far from it, again. We are far from it. In terms of your distribution, I want to know how many Black distributors are there that are distributing technology? Every technology that lands in this country, at what point in time does government come up and say that we want to build Black distributors? If we don't own the distribution chain, then we must forget transforming the economy. We must forget ever transforming the economy. We're supposed to be having programs, and government is supposed to be having laws that are then forcing that we must have Black distributors that are distributing technology and distributing software. And that software must be localized and the distribution must also, majority of it, be localized. We need to set standards that tell us that 50%, if not 80%, which is what we are proposing, 80% of technology, whether it's software, hardware, or whether it's telecoms, it must be Black-owned. We must prioritize on that as well. Then people will quote your legislation, Steph, and misquoting, by the way, legislation, totally ignoring the Constitution, and will not use the clauses, Mbulen, that will be suitable for opening government to be a market for Black people. We refuse to do that. We would rather misquote and lie and misrepresent the facts and never ever go back to the Constitution and all the clauses in the legislations that enable for the procurement, specifically for Black people, to achieve transformation. We ignore those. We totally ignore those. We do not know right now all the special and emergency procurements that are happening during this time of COVID. If the people that are strategically positioned and over the years have strategically positioned themselves, if they are not the ones that are benefiting. These are things that we need to look at. Now, on managed services, SMMEs, a lot of our SMMEs were really making a living and assisting government under managed services. And then there's a state SITA, State Information Technology Agency, that procures more than 80% of its managed services from companies that are not Black, that do not have that ownership. 51% Black ownership is what, really? Is what? If we want to achieve transformation, 51% Black, come on, we need to think again. Now, there are certain resolutions that were taken and there are certain positions that we've taken. Now, as PBICT, where we disagree, we will totally disagree with any organization, even with anyone amongst our members. Where we disagree with a particular position, we totally disagree and we argue to the tilt. Now, moving from consulting, you go to a lot of municipalities, you find they call what they say that they've in-sourced consulting. Now you go back and you go and see those municipalities and you see those government departments. You look at the training, you look at the skills. And this is why today, when we're having a challenge with COVID-19, we find ourselves in a situation where people can't work remotely. And they can't work remotely because they got rid of managed services. These are some of the things we should be looking at. Government needs to focus on managed services. We need to focus on solutions. Now, one of the things that I've realized is that your government CIOs, you never see them participating in platforms like this. You never see them even in GovTech. You never see them anywhere. But those people must advise our government on the way forward. They don't base their advice on what is happening on the field and from people like us that are on the field that understand the transformation agenda. They base it on the people that visit their offices and give them free phones, free trips, free tickets to soccer stadiums or where have you. That is what they base it on. They base it on the capitalist markets. And they base it on a simple thing of a cell phone, of a member stick, or whatever it is that they get given. And it's time that the leadership really starts to question and really look at what advice are they getting from CIOs. Now, a lot of our SMMEs, we end up conforming and being resellers. We can claim that we're in IT, comrades. A lot of us, all we are is box droppers. And how many of those resellers are actually directly linked to distributors? And that link to distributors then talks to our credit our credit scorings. It talks to the credit that the distributors give us. Now, there's a whole thing of securing a deal before a deal, and you end up finding a lot of our SMMEs being resellers of resellers who are resellers of resellers, and those resellers are resellers of those resellers. And those resellers are on the distributors. Why? Because the distribution channel is locked down, and the distribution channel is specifically designed to benefit at first tier only certain people. We need to have more Black resellers that are directly linked to Black distributors and distributors of manufacturers of equipment and software that is 80% South African built and is 100% Black owned, African in particular. We need to start having those conversations, that prioritization. A lot of us are in training. A lot of us say we're in IT and we are in training. But even there too, that training that is there, it's only training us to be users. It's only training us to be super users. I always say, MOTSAMAI and Imbulelo, that if you are a Cisco certified engineer, you're not an engineer. You're just good in configuring. You don't know how to design that router. So how are you an engineer? If you're a Microsoft engineer, you don't know how to build your own server operating system and to set it up and get it to work. All you are just doing configuration. You're not an engineer. We need to start facing those facts. You're not an engineer. All we are users. We need to build more and have more trainings on things where we are manufacturing our own radios. We are building our own software, our own operating systems big, our own cybersecurity, our own cameras, DENIS, our own virtual realities. We need to make sure that that IP is protected, Steph. Our support services, a lot of us, again, are in the support services, right? And whose technology are we supporting, just by the way? And those support come with conditions. And this is where we go wrong as government. And this is where we go wrong as the private sector. Because you want to have a silver this, a gold partner this, a this partner this, a this partner that. When you've done looking enough, make sure that it is equipped enough to reach the levels of being gold partners, of being those statuses. But we're quick to put it in tender documents. We're quick to put it in requirements. Private sector procures their IT without even being bothered and giving two hoots about whether they're going to transform or give it to Black people without no application, nothing. Why is it like that? Why is government still allowing such? We need to have more rigid laws so that all the support services, we can build a strong support base to support all of these technologies and all of these solutions. We need to start focusing on that and really building on it. Our ISP services, MOTSAMAI, very little Black people play in this space. We need to have more. Likewise with land services, a simple thing with SETA. The South African police services up until today is an ongoing battle just because they will not allow for Black people to go and put simple land cable, a simple land cable in a police station. And yet we allow these things to happen up until today. Your Department of Home Affairs, your Department of Health, all of you in government, who is putting your land cable? You can't even allow us just that privilege, just to do that, to come and install a simple land cable, simple land cable. It is wrong. It is wrong. And it's anti-innovation, it's anti-transformation. You are killing this country. We need to make sure that it is our Black SMEs that are playing in those places. And if we can do that and we can make these commitments today, we will start to see a huge change and a serious mindset shift. And we will start to move to the right. Your data storages, it's the biggest joke ever in this country. We own nothing. We own nothing. All the data centers and everything is owned outside of this country. We own nothing. Absolutely nothing. Dubai Trade Port is about the only data center that I know that is owned by government or that is South African owned. All other data centers, we are so dependent, MOTSAMAI and Mbulelo, on the Chinese or Americans, Europeans, and everyone. We own nothing. When are we going to start focusing on sovereignty of our data and our content, DENIS? These are the things that we're looking at. The multimedia production space, Black SMEs, African in particular, very few play in that space. It's also dominated. So if you look in terms of, if you look at and you follow this red line, this is where we are in terms of transformation, and this is where at least we should strive to be in the next year and in the next 2 years. And our focus should be at that level. Now, the unfortunate part about us as ICT is that we are marginalized. Even now during COVID-19, we are saving a lot of people. Right now, we're having these platforms. Government is able to continue to work. Clinics are able to do tests and all of those things. But not once have we ever been acknowledged as the work we're doing as the ICT sector. I guess we are just one of the essential services. No, we are a core essential service during this COVID-19. We are one of the core essential services. Without us, those results will not come through as fast as they should be. And yet we are marginalized. There is no program that is saying, IT, how can we monitor the movement of people? Using blockchain, using technology. We should be saying, as people are going back to work, IT, how do we make sure that people don't touch doorknobs? But that is far, 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 far from the thoughts. We are marginalized before COVID-19 because ICT is one of those things that are there. I only say IT guy if my computer is broken. And that is why we're having these challenges that we're having today. Oh, Microsoft has got a solution. I know Cisco's got a solution. It's wrong. It's very wrong. And now that we're in this COVID, again, ICT is being marginalized. Oh, no, this is a sector that is not affected because now they've got Zoom and they can make money in this. No, it doesn't work like that. So these are the conversations, comrades, that I'm expecting from you. Now, what is transformation, innovation is the question today. And I want to say this very slowly so that it sinks in and so that it resonates with us all. It's a simple thing. We've got the wrong people, absolutely wrong people that have occupied and find their ways to be sitting on the right tables, the right decision-making tables, the right tables that are supposed to be transforming, the right tables that are supposed to be driving innovation, the right tables that are supposed to be leading in this country. Those wrong people have found their way to the table and they are sitting on the right tables. They are busy making the wrong decisions for the right people. They are making the wrong decisions for the right people. And I challenge anyone to disagree with that statement. The second problem that we're having is a kanda-kanda mentality. When I was a kid, I grew up knowing that anything that is machinery, anything that is technology, or anything like that, kanda-kanda babelu, is for white people. The unfortunate part is that we still have people in our government, in our private sectors that still suffer from the kanda-kanda mentality, where they think that it is only for a certain group of people. And these things are only for Chinese. These things in China, this is in this. It is wrong. That is why I say we have not moved from the apartheid mentality. People are still stuck in the kanda-kanda mentality. We suffer from a scotoma syndrome. Now, scotoma is a simple thing. It's something that gives a blurry vision of the mind, where we don't know where we're flying. If you can imagine a pilot where his instruments fail and is flying through, he or she is flying through the clouds and doesn't know where they're going, doesn't even know if the plane is still flying or has landed. We suffer from that. We suffer from that. We've created these illusions and created these performance plans and created these platforms, and we go and stand in platforms and boast about how well we are doing as a country, this left, right, and center, every government department. We have people claiming to have transformation as part of their DNA. We have people that talk, and they just throw in SMME. You have people that come in and tell us about SMME development programs. Hey, you've never been an SMME. You don't understand what it's like to be an SMME. So how are you developing SMMEs? You claim to be sitting and saying that you're a funding agent and you're there to fund for black people. Hey, you've never innovated anything. You've never invented anything, Vic. So how are you going to know that that innovation has actually got an opportunity and a potential? You live on a salary. You live on a salary. You get a bonus at the end of the year or on your birthday, whichever. You get a 13 check. Whereas SMMEs and innovators and inventors and people that are transforming on a day-to-day basis, they live from mouth to mouth, one day at a time. You've never been there. You don't know what it's like. You are suffering from scotomy. You are suffering from the scotomy syndrome. The biggest problem that we have as South Africa is patriotism. And patriotism ends up when you talk passionately like we do, when you are called names simply because of people that lack a spirit of patriotism, a spirit of transformation, leading the transformation. So we are taken and you are put there on the side and made into some radical and some enemy of the state that taught us how to fight for transformation. It's our country. It's our country. It's our duty. It's our responsibility. It's our patriotic duty to build this country and move it from the state of apartheid and move it to an inclusive state. And if we don't do it and we're not vocal about it, then it's going to be a problem. Those people that have found their way to be sitting on the round tables, whether you're a CIO or whoever you are, we want to conscientize you and remind you of your patriotic duty. Stop suffering from scotoma and the Kanda mentality, move away from it. Take a pill, get rid of the Kanda mentality, find a way. So those are the things that we're talking about, and this is then leading us to the big question of how do we unplug the blockages disturbing the flow of innovation and transformation. Now that leads us to that discussion and that topic, my dear panel members. And I will allow for us to come in, absorb what we've just discussed and what we've seen here, and let us talk about the blockages that are blocking the transformation. Comrades, let me start with Mbulen. Can I have your comments from you?
Good afternoon again, my colleagues. You know, after Leon has spoken, I think MOTSAMAI can agree. He has said everything we wanted to say. We might as well close the conversation, but I think I know a comrade always hit the right nerves. And comrade, may I appeal for a disclaimer in these conversations that whatever we're discussing here, at the end of the day, we're trying to come with a solution to transform this sector. You know, comrade, as you were presenting, raising questions about the CIOs, one of the questions that I need to ask these committees, where are the origins of the CIOs? That's a big question because most of the CIOs have struggle. You get CIOs from Sweden, from UK, from our neighboring countries. We love our neighboring countries, it's fine. But we are talking now, we don't want to sound xenophobic, but look at most of the CIOs or CTOs that are in these institutions. Some of them are my friends, but they will understand where I'm coming from. Secondly, comrade, there's something lacking. I always say to you, all these deployees that they've been deployed by government, umkhabulo is very important. We're losing this battle because they don't know umkhabulo. If we had been through proper political lectures, so you'll understand where we're coming from with these discussions. We need not to beat around the bushes. Some of them, about my PhDs, about Dr. Ross, Professor Wanban. But the main thing is, do you understand umkhabulo? Because umkhabulo talks to the plight of our people. Our people are struggling today because of the likes of us who are failing to transform this sector. We are badly failing to transform this sector. What has these MNOs, has the ICT sector, your likes of Telkom, MTN, Cell-C, Vodacom, have done to transform the ICT sector in this country? They won't do nothing, comrade. Trust me. The question is, what we as this community going to do going forward? Now, we have programs that we try as government to initiate, like your SA Connect. You know, I have never been approached by any of those participants, ANPs, that were given an opportunity, Victor, to go and build networks in districts. But when ICASA issued a request for a spectrum, none of them consolidated their network and say, ICASA, this is what we have. Leon might have done it with his group and other guys. These guys were building network in Vembe. Guys were building network in Gersebande, or Tambo, Peaks Legal Assembly District. Did they all call you, Leon, and say, let's sit down and discuss? We have this network. It hasn't been done. Now look at the power of that network as we're going to roll out SA Connect. It's a platform that we should cherish and move on with. I'm saying let's consolidate all these efforts, from networks to our software designs and solution, data hosting. They won't, trust me, you think Vodacom will just go out and budget 3 billion for SMMEs just to transform in this country? No. If there is that 3 billion, trust me, 2.999 billion of that money is going to go to the minority. Now, comrades, I think it's an issue of what has government done. You're quite right, Comrade Leon, to say ICT hasn't been recognized. But these results that are coming in telling us how many people have died, how many have recovered, all been transformed partly by some of your network. Some of the networks that you guys are building, but no one is acknowledging it. That's why we end up talking about vibrators, because we don't know what is going on. We need to take ICT very, very serious. And for me, it pains me for some of us who've been in a procurement environment for more than 20 years, seeing that this environment is not transforming. What has been put in there as government to say we're putting a budget of 10 billion rands to go and transform SMMEs in the ICT sector, from the networks to the distribution to hosting to software and content management. Nothing has been put in by government. The question that we must ask our government, our same government, I'm not talking to DA here, I'm talking to our own government. Do you understand what's happening in the ICT sector? Let's start there. Or do you want to go in there to go and cut ribbons of schools that we don't know, that probably that school, as they open a ribbon, say, MTN is opening this school, it's money they could have channeled to SMEs to go and build networks, transform those SMEs. I was approached by one of the international companies in a TV white space. When they approach you, they come and say, this is us who are manufacturing, and then you looked at them and say, but I don't see an SME playing here. You know, their distributor, a listed company. Now you ask yourself, why don't you have an SME as their distributor? Now SMEs is like, for sure, just go. Go to fagi fiber. Some SMEs, they don't even know how to splice, do OTDR testings. They don't know. They've been told, in fact, when I was driving about 3 weeks ago, I saw a fiber being rolled out around the Eguru Lane. Most of the guys that were there were black guys But the guys that are sitting in bakkies with those testing machines and all that stuff are white guys. Old ladies have been even put in the street carrying red flags. But this topic, Comrade Leon, I need to be very honest with you. It's a sensitive topic for me. Those scotoma syndromes are there, Comrade. You're quite right. They are there, and I need to say that our government is failing the SMMEs. Our government is not playing a leading role in ensuring that SMMEs claim their rightful places. Some of us, Comrade MOTSAMAI, in our procurement environment, we get challenged by big firms when we issue a tender saying 100% black-owned companies. And a big firm that is sitting somewhere in Sandton writes it. And then I said, no, it's fine. Oksala, we're going to appoint those black firms. We need to be aggressive. We're not breaking the law. Remember, PFA addresses the historical disadvantages that we had. Our constitution addresses this. The Bill of Rights addresses this. We need to give our people the rights. We're busy doing our webinars, which is a good thing. We are communicating. But there are kids sitting in Tuba. They are worried. They can't submit an assignment. They are worried. And then we'll get those who will run to government quickly and say, no, we can do connectivity. And they give you some solution that after 3 months, what will that solution do to this country? Why should it? I always emphasize that a kid that is sitting in Tuba Suite have the same connectivity, same download speeds as the kid that is sitting in Palito, in Sandton. It's high time now where blacks or black communities have to be given substandard networks. It needs to come to an end. Now, my proposal, Comrade Leon, especially to you, I'm challenging you, MOTSAMAI, to say, let's start consolidating us tomorrow. For us to go and say, government, do this. Let's go to government and say, government, we're building SA Connect. We're building networks in other areas. Abu Udi are building a network somewhere. Obokola, they're sitting in the Eastern Cape, hustling, building networks. Let's consolidate in this platform and say, this is a network that we're having. Why don't you utilize it? Why don't we expand on this network? SA Connect might come and might not come later on. We don't know. I had these proposals to do fiber to the homes to address the COVID. That's not going to work. We need to connect our rural people. We need to connect our schools. We need to connect our clinics. DTT is not going to serve us any purpose now. We need to connect our people. We're not interested in DTT and TV. Now, I'm saying to you, comrades, this forum, let's start consolidating. You have a network, Leon, that probably worth millions now as we speak. Are you leveraging on that network? Why should we have the likes of KZN Growth Fund having an appetite to go and invest in the likes of DFA, but there's no interest in investing in black companies like you guys? It means that we are misaligned. And you're quite right. We have the wrong people sitting in the right position, doing wrong decisions. I think, comrade, I don't want to say a lot because this is a very sensitive topic for me. But let's engage, comrades. I'm appealing, let's engage. But by the time we conclude at 5 o'clock, let's have a solution, a way forward. What we can take tomorrow to ministry and say, this is what we have, and this is where we want to go. That inclusive economic angle, we need to be in that corner. Gone are the days, we need to start building ISPs. Let's use these networks, build ISPs. You see, let's provide the full value chain. And you guys need to stop. You guys need to stop when you get a tender. Then you go and outsource it to a white man. Some of you, about Dr. Ross, they are annoying me. You give him a project, he goes and outsources to a white man. And then he comes to the platform and say, a white man has taken this much. Did you talk to Victor to say, can you do this configuration? Some of us were patient, fortunately, in our supply chain. We'll wait for you until Jesus comes to finish that network. We'll wait for you. But stop outsourcing to what? We're not against the whites, but they've taken the economy. Look at the latest news that they've been coming out, taking tourism sector to court to reverse the BEE prescripts. It's utter nonsense. I'll be very honest with you. All of a sudden, there's a COVID now. Triple PFA must be pushed aside for white companies to benefit in. Comrade Leon, those white people are already, as we speak, looted all those billions that are sitting at the national treasury because they're the one who are supplying. I don't remember DENIS said he has distributed even one face mask because it's been done, taken all of it. Now I'm appealing, comrade, as we engage, let's engage on a way forward on the basis of what we have in currently. Let's leverage on it and let's go and argue for the right cause. The Prof said it last week that there will be a second round of this COVID. I don't want this webinar. Don't invite me for this webinar on the second round of this COVID. Invite me on a site where you are finishing sites, connecting our kids. Let's not do webinars for long. Let's build networks. Even if we have to come in and go and take overdrafts, go and build the networks. At the end of the day, they will benefit you. You know the upstreams of these networks. Let me leave it there so that I don't take everyone's time. Thank you, comrade.
No, comrade. No, thank you very much. I think that, comrade, this is a discussion off the cuff, like I've said, that we are on our PICT platform and we're talking about how do we unplug the blockages that are stopping transformation and innovation. Comrade Victor, I know you've been very vocal about IFMS and about CETA, the monies that have been spent on the Oracle project, on the SAP project, billions spent, but yet government is still sitting and where it was sitting during apartheid and using old legacy systems that are not serving any purpose whatsoever. But yet, we've got SMMEs that even win ITU awards, international ITU awards for application development, very capable young men and young women. That government is also on some of them spending a lot of money with this incubation and innovation, left, right, and center, all of those things, Comrade Victor. Now I want you to give us a perspective into what is happening in your space, the software engineering space. What are the problems there? And what do we need to look at moving forward? Thank you very much, Mbulelo, for that very progressive way forward, as well as talking off the cuff. You're off the cuff, Victor. Thank you.
Thank you, President. There's a saying that goes, charity begins at home. In my space, the most important issue and problem that we're having and that we see growing daily is when our Minister of Education, Basic Education, celebrates the high numbers of matric pass rates. And no one talks about the declining pass rates of mathematics while the number of the matric pass rates are going up. So the society that we are in right now, that has been made clear to us by what's happening now in COVID, with the COVID pandemic that we have in COVID-19 pandemic, it has shown that we do need software, we do need systems, we do need connectivity, we do need data centers, we do need people with skills who will be able to respond when there's emergencies and actually deliver on whatever requirements government or the private sector or a community may have. But already the trend in which we are going as a country in terms of looking at the importance of STEM that was part of your earlier presentation slide, one of the slides in your deck, is the complete disconnection of everyone involved from basic education to higher education up to the minister level. If I have to ask any of them, if they had to be on this panel, they had to be asked, what is the definition of STEM? Even the ones that they've appointed to work within that STEM environment. They think that the T in the STEM, some of them that I've spoken to, the T in the STEM acronym stands for, is standing there for information and communications technology. See, so there's completely a misjuncture in terms of the people, like you've explained or said or mentioned earlier on, that you have the wrong people in the right places, where you need people that can drive the solutions that we put forward to them. The world is full of solutions. Online, it's everywhere around us. But unfortunately, because of the mindset, and the mindset starting at home with the parents, allowing the children to drop pure maths, for example, because mathematics teaches you about problem solving. It brings out the best out of you in terms of problem solving. And if your kid doesn't do maths, or your child runs away from maths, or the parent allows the child to run away from maths. And when I talk about the parents, I'm including the teachers that allow that to happen, including the principals. There's no regulation in terms of why is it there's so many black children. And when I say black children, I'm including the coloreds as well. Okay? When you go to the high schools, the number of the rate at which you find the mathematics, the students dropping mathematics, the subject mathematics, it is alarming. But we don't hear an outcry from any of our ministers because they don't understand. Someone is not explaining the right things to them in terms of when you say you want to create a young person or a South African that can contribute positively in society. That's the purpose of why schools are there. It is the purpose is to help us from foundation phase to become those individuals that are supposed to contribute positively to this community and not to be there as people who want handouts. Instead, what we brag about is the amount of SASSA cards that we are distributing annually. We are giving young men that are healthy free houses. But we don't use the money to make sure that the foundation that we create to have those individuals that can create those solutions for us in terms of software, etc., to start in the right place. Strong foundation, primary schools must have mathematics as the most important subject. When we speak about being innovative, creativity has to be supported and inspired. Parents at home mustn't discourage the children when the children are sitting and playing and creating funny things with mud and the sticks and the bricks and say, hey, Chimagdi is fail. You're going to get sick. They have to encourage the children to be creative. If we discourage our children as parents to be creative and to take on challenges, then already we are teaching them to be failures and take the shortcut. And that's why you see our learners, when they get to high school, dropping their full mathematics completely, or to this other mathematics that I don't even want to mention its name of because I don't want it to be part of my vocabulary. So in terms of the IFMS system, which I believe with a budget that has received a budget factually from government with a direct purpose to empower and ignite small businesses, small companies, SMMEs, and push them into the space of software engineering and delivering services, software services. Started in 2014 with a good cause. That's when the IFMS tender was released. Although the whole talk and discussion of it and how the money, the budget was approved was at the time of Bo Ndate Trevor Manuel and them. They're the ones who were the masters of designing and presenting this in Parliament very, very early on. But to date, 1.7 million has been spent, 1.7 billion rand has been spent on the IFMS system. But we don't even have a working prototype today. So what was that money being spent on? The service providers that were appointed, ICT Works, KPMG, Abacus, Apex, Accenture, Oracle, Intenda, IBM, SEP, Pilog, BCX, Barnstone, all of them couldn't deliver just a prototype. But 1.7 billion has been spent. 106 million irregular spending to ICT Works, 69 million irregular spending to KPMG again. KPMG just flares up everywhere. Abacus, 28.4 million. We don't even get a million as a black SMME just to try something. 1 million, just to say, no, Victor, we'll give you $1 million. Just we see you've built these systems. Let's try this system. If it fails, it fails. If it works, then hey, you know, we've made history. Our mindset, that is where I'm moving to now. The mindset of our people, both black and white. The white people, I understand. They've never really trusted our capacity in terms of ICT. I remember when I started studying ICT in 1990 something. I'm not going to give my age away. I remember my girlfriend telling me at the time, why are you studying this thing that white people are doing? This thing is for white people. You must go and do HR or something where you know you get a job. But I didn't change that. But I must say that she was correct, because to date, here we are with all the experience, all the skills that we have. I've delivered so many systems, you know, but you asked me if I've sold any one of them, even just for $500,000. Nothing, zero. We would have, in the Free State, had the first online election system, which we developed with 20 black graduates from CUT, who's never been in the industry. Now, the reason why I'm saying 20 black youth is because I want us to understand also the importance when it comes to mindset in terms of how we view technology and why some of us are being oppressed and being blocked from participating in that space, even as an employee. See, the moment your accent is not like mine, see, mine is at least all right. The moment you start talking an English that is being seen by academics as substandard, immediately then your intelligence is also not judged on that and your capacity to deliver. So I've deliberately taken these 20 kids that were based from places like Belfontein, Virginia, and I put them in that program. None of them were from Bloemfontein. And these kids delivered an end-to-end, completely paperless election solution back in 2013. It's 7 years ago. But you're not going to hear about that because they sent in someone, a white man, that goes by the name, I'm going to give the name, Professor Gerot, to come and unplug an incredible program that was started by a black professor and his team called Professor Thando Mthembu. I think, in my view, why these things are happening, because we talk about blockages, is we need to understand and we need to start protecting our own. If we don't do that, and we have to do it with our blood and sweat. I don't want to be the one that want to promote anything that has to do with race. But the realities are the realities, and I have got that experience. I've been over 20 years, almost 25 years now in the industry of ICT. And I've noticed how when I get into an environment where I'm the first black and I perform better than the white oaks, that company actually opens up the doors for the other guys to come in. I can mention those companies' names. They're both in the Free State and in Gauteng. That has opened up because all they needed to see for them to believe that we are capable in software engineering and also quality assurance and everything that goes around was to have one that can show that it is possible. So we have to work, all of us collectively, even us, President, from where we are sitting. And we have to include the white people as well within our space. And we have to have these conversations, these very difficult conversations with them, so that they can go home to their homes and assist with that mindset. As we said, and when I started, charity begins at home. The school teachers, the principals, they need to be taken serious. We need to start having some sort of a group or a movement where we enlighten school principals about the importance of STEM and why, and give them solutions also, even in terms of software engineering. We can build systems for them, where the kids can get onto smart systems where they can learn a lot in terms of STEM, if there is not enough support at that particular school. But we need budgets to be able to implement that. Because for us to build systems, it costs a lot of money. For me, for example, to build my multi-platform solutions, unfortunately, I have to buy technology in order for me to start coding, to start rolling out the software, to start making it possible for my software to be on all these multi-platforms. It cost me more than 45,000 Rand a year. That's just my cost. We're not even talking my data costs. But ask me if I'm getting that kind of stable income from any software that I have successfully sold. The other issue of mindset now, if I take it in one level up, my President, is our practitioners' mentality, our software engineers. Our software engineers need to understand, as you said, we have to own our own and build our own technologies. This thing of copy and pasting existing technology and saying, no, it's open source, that's how it works. There's existing code, you copy it and you paste it, and then you just change it here and there, and then you call yourself a programmer. That's wrong. You're not a programmer. You're a user. And you're using other people's think work in order to call yourself something that you're not. And that is being called being lazy as well. You are not innovative if you take someone else's code, copy, paste it, and then just tweak it here and there. That's not innovation. If you look at the multiple platforms there are for social media, none of those guys said, okay, no, wait, there's already WhatsApp. So why do I want to build another one? Microsoft has got their own platform. There's a lot of platforms out there. But our black people say, no, there's already WhatsApp. Why must I build another WhatsApp? That's our mentality. We don't want to compete. We don't want to build something that's better than others because we just believe that, no, our solutions must come from somewhere else. And if there's a solution, you copy and you paste it. Now, in terms of government, CETA, major problem as well. For me, my President, and colleagues who are listening, including the young people, and I hope our government people are online. I was talking and introducing the difficulty to sell, and also the difficulty even for a willing government department or municipality wants to buy from us. All these things are red taped by CETA and how CETA's rules are standing. Even if there's a willing department that wants to use Victor's solutions for implementation, even now during this COVID-19, there is no one that I've heard from the Minister of Technology that says, okay, you don't have to be on a CETA contract anymore to deliver a service. And because it's COVID-19 and it's emergency, we need to be agile. No, they left it in place so that the people that were there must be there even during this difficult times, even if they can't deliver the solutions that we can deliver with agility to our communities, the clinics, the schools, the hospitals that needs communication systems now and so forth. We can't do it because no one has come up from government and stood up and said, wait. SETA right now should be pushed aside so that we can get easy access in terms of the skills that we need to deliver these solutions that we need to be delivered within 24 hours. So for me, that is basically for now my contribution in terms of the blockages and where I see, solutions could come in. Thank you, Press. Over to you.
Oh, thank you, Victor, for that mouthful there. Dennis, can you please upgrade Steph? I think we've lost her there. She's just come back now. She can please upgrade her to the panel. No, thank you very much, Victor. I think that, MOTSAMAI, you've heard what Victor has to say, and there's some questions that I have posed. Connectivity is number one and is key. Now, there's a lot of things that have happened. There's the issue of the WAN, there's the TV white space, and there's a whole lot of other things that are happening. You've presented a lot to us previously, and we utterly enjoyed your presentation. But I think that now what we need to be looking at is to look at solutions. But where interesting where you'd like to zoom in, like Victor has said, what IFMS 1.7 billion spent, and yet there's no prototype now. My biggest concern is on areas like your Western Cape, your Eastern Cape, Limpopo, Gauteng, where there has been a rollout by SETA. And yet today, when it's time for us to strive to push for connectivity, why is Limpopo suffering? Why is Eastern Cape suffering? Why is Khayelitsha suffering? Why is there no connectivity there? Are we perhaps seeing in the telecoms the same thing happening on there? And I also wanted to zoom in. I've seen a lot of reports from Vodacom, from MTN, from Telkom, claiming that they have 99% coverage, 99.6% coverage of this left, right, and center. What exactly is that coverage that they're talking about? Because I can tell you now that when I go home to Dandi, I mean, it's not even deep rural areas. Hey, I suffer with connectivity there. Even around here, I've been around even in Durban and in areas, in suburbs, there's still no connectivity. Can you just tell us, just off the cuff, we are talking off the cuff with its PBICT, Sabispa, and Youth Economic Alliance. I do apologize that Comrade President Youth Economic Alliance couldn't join us because he has a bereavement at home. And our condolences go out to you, Pres, in this time of need for your community or for your family. We do apologize for that and our condolences. But MOTSAMAI, just off the cuff, what is happening in that space? Why our SMME is still suffering? Why our SMMEs can't get a simple subcontract with who are we? They must be referred to a white company that refers them to a Chinese company that refers them to a white company, who refers them to another 3 levels of white companies, ultimately to an Indian company and another Indian and another Indian, and then they get a contract, and when it's time for them to get paid, they almost never. What is happening in that space? Thank you.
Chair, thank you so much for that questions. And I think I want to take it to where you started it. It's quite a very interesting, but on my side, since I'm definitely talking off the cuffs myself, I just quickly want to hit it for what it is. The reality is that we are absolutely not recognized in this industry. Black people are nowhere to be found. We are definitely under a serious delusion here to think that we are participating. We are not. We are talking about SMMEs as just a broad term, but in reality is that we are nowhere to be found, honestly speaking. So let me take it a little bit backward, Press, because you've also shown on your presentation some sort of a quadrant that is talking about basically moving from one quadrant to the other. But I think before we go there, I want us to also acknowledge that it's very difficult to basically solve a problem that you are not aware of, or a problem that you don't have a knowledge of. It's very, very difficult. In some instances, somebody says you are shooting in the dark. You don't know if you might hit your fellow colleague, you know? So first thing first is I think we need to address the issue of a knowledge. And to make an example with the quadrant you were showing us, I also want to share what is called Johari window. A Johari window, it deals with the shift of knowledge. And the concept is, and I think somebody also who was very popular in phrasing this, I remember discussing this with somebody a couple of days ago. It's around knowledge. Because when you know, let me make an example with an enemy. I think it makes you comfortably, comfortable in navigating any terrains when you are in any war, because you know who your enemy is, as opposed to you just being in field and you don't know your enemy, or you don't know any, or you don't have any some sort of a substance in terms of information. It's a problem. So the Johari window talks about 3 levels, and I want to outlay these levels into that quadrant that you've drew. Is that the first level is the first level talks about known knowns, meaning that there are things that we know, all right? And I think it's quite comforting that, you know, I know that I know something. And then there is a second layer to that, which is what they call known unknowns. You know, so wish to say that there are things that we know we don't know, you know, and therefore obviously gives you comfort to say, if I know I don't know something, I will then have a plan in basically putting an effort in learning that thing. I think those two are quite comfortable. But there's also a last layer on the quadrant of what we call Johari window, which is the last one, and it's very, very painful. And I think this is where our Black people and most of us are. We might be very in denial in slotting ourselves into LSMs in society, to say, at least I'm a middle class, I stay somewhere in Kyalami, I'm much better than whoever who is somewhere in the rurals. Now, the last one, which I think we are all suffering from, and I want us to really drill down to that one before we're gonna talk about all these big problems. It is the last one called unknown unknowns. There are things that we don't know. It is quite uncomfortable and painful. But then, obviously, we need to move from the lowest one, obviously, to the middle one, which is the known unknowns, and all the way to the known knowns. Because then when we are now on the layer one, we are comfortable as people, because we have some information. We can navigate the terrain very well when we have information. So that is the first problem that I think before we go into get into war and we are going to basically disperse, we are going to get in there and get hurt because we don't have a strategy, we don't have a knowledge, we don't have patience to sit down and jot the information and plan it well. And what I mean by this is, in relation to generational wealth that you were talking about, is that most of us are in the run. We are so quick to make a quick dollar, and so that we can move on quickly. And we are failing the next generation that's coming, because they're going to perpetuate the very same thing that we were doing, which is just a survival mentality. So that is basically where I think we need to look at this problem, which is the history of the internet in this country. I want us to go there, because I want us to start in the lower level, which is the unknown unknowns. Let's try to bring them into a couple of knowns, and some people can do further investigation. That way, all these issues that we are faced with today, we are able to basically navigate them well, because we've got information. We've got a lot of data that we basically can read, and we make decisions based on that. So first thing first, colleagues, is that when we talk about networks, in my view, is that a network is just a bunch of public IP addresses clumped together, obviously backed up by infrastructure at the back, you know? So if we look at it as simple as that, we need to drill into how those network or how internet operates as people. Then it will actually bring us to the layers where we have labor, where we have our people that are laying fiber on the ground, the people who are building towers out there. All of that comes to the core, which is how the internet works. If we don't understand that, I think we are going to be these fast mouse in the wheel. We're not going to go anywhere. So first thing first, I think let's start the topic of, and I will actually mention these things in order so that we understand the flow, all right? Now, and in that flow, I want to start with ICASA. That's where I think everything should start. Now, with ICASA, the reason why we all have to start at ICASA is that mandated by DCDT is that they are being given powers to be an authority within the sector and actually be the voice of government. We must actually remember that. Let's not be disturbed by the issue of the independency of the authority. That is okay. They need to actually flex their muscles independently. That's why we basically, deployed those people there. We deployed educated people there. But I also want to acknowledge what Mbulelo said is that we also have a problem of deploying people that don't understand issues of MOKHOMO. And somewhere we are losing the plot in terms of where we want to go. It's okay, but I think there was a problem, and I want to reference this problem to about activity that took place about two and a half years ago, where ICASA has actually went into courts with the minister, ICASA wanting to basically auction the spectrum without the consent of the actual body that is governing them. Now, that is a strict alarm for all of us. We must look at it from there. There is a problem there. Now, where is the problem? The problem could be the board members and the people that we are allowing to actually govern ICASA. We must look at who are the people that are sitting there, number one. You've spoken about some CIO's issue that we are having. I want to relate this one also on people that are sitting in these boards, running these organizations that the government that we actually voted has actually had the mandate to go deploy certain cadres in there. We need to not be apologetic because everything else that is in government is us that is influencing it. And our voices should not be thrown in what we call a spiral of silence. A spiral of silence is that the word they, when people are saying they, you are hearing plural. Because if you don't have a confidence to say what I'm saying is right and they could be wrong, you don't have to easily fall into the spiral of silence. We need to keep on going because our voice is not heard. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. Absolutely. We need to keep on going because we are right. The example is that we did it in supporting the government and making noise around issues of the WAN, issues of the spectrum. We know that obviously the industry has been saying government is utter stupid around this issue of the spectrum, issues of the WAN. And today they're the ones that are actually talking with us to say we are together. So I want you to actually, in building confidence with everybody who's in here, is that it doesn't mean that when we don't have money, when we don't have those big bank accounts, that does not mean our plight or our cause is an incorrect one. It doesn't. We are absolutely right, and we need to do things the right way. So that's number one, in my view. We need to basically look at those structures in terms of the people that are being basically nominated to basically run these entities. In my view, and the example of what happened with ICASA and our government ended up in court, is that definitely in ICASA, we had people that are running ICASA for their own pockets. They are marking their own exams. And that is a problem. And obviously, we know that those people that are sitting there, or those who were previously sitting there, because we might have had a couple of few shifts, is that they were definitely in the pockets of your big networks. And that was the issue. They were addressing the interest of the external parties. We need to focus and look at that and see what can we do to ensure that we have the right people in there. That is number one. And then when we are at ICASA, ICASA obviously has to issue out licenses. We cannot operate. This is one of those hindrances for most of our people to participate in the industry. It starts with the license, because it's impossible. Why are we talking all these networks if we are not licensed? Those licenses come with a cost. Now, the people that are setting up these laws, this is where we are giving them power. We are asking them to actually set the rules for us. In us getting in war, let's start there. The first information that we must interrogate is issues of licenses. There is currently a moratorium. We need to remove that moratorium in terms of shifting licenses and getting those licenses in the hands of our people. We cannot talk about the auctioning of the spectrum when the requirement, the prerequisite of you bidding is a license. We are actually, majority of us cannot enter that auction room, even if we had some partnership with investors somewhere across the world in us creating new MNOs in this country. We cannot. The first point of entry in that auction room is your license. And if our people don't have those licenses, we need to go back to ICASA and saying, oh, Comrade Steph, we need to look at Competition Commission. We need to look at the BEE Commission and say, come closer. Before we actually proceed with this auction, which I believe that they're very excited that the auction should definitely happen before 2020. I'm not sure, comrades. I want to remind you, let's not be allowed to fall within the spiral of silence. We need to be vocal. Let's not be afraid. Let's not be told that we don't know what we're talking about. That is a problem. It's 26 years in this country. We've shown our patience. I think it's about time that the different war that we need to fight today has to be in the space where we are. And I think COVID-19 has actually shown that opportunity for all of us. Now, we need to make sure that those licenses are definitely sitting on the hands of our people, which there is just a reminder to all of you is that there is also a closing date tomorrow on the submission of the dilution of shares on the license holders into basically 30% of including the black-owned companies. So in simple terms is that current license holders, at least ICASA is looking at, when you are a license holder, at least there must be some sort of 30% shareholding of that license from black people. So perhaps you will notice that I am putting problems on the table, but I'm also trying to put solutions in terms of what we should do. But more than anything, I want to emphasize, please, let's not fall down into the spiral of silence because of lack of knowledge. We need to keep on going through these hierarchical structures that are spoken about, which is the unknown unknowns, the known unknowns, and the knowns knowns. We need to keep on going up there. Let's not be afraid, even if the process is going to be slower. Let's not let anybody derail us, because we are not only doing this for ourselves, we are doing it for generations to come. We need to actually make sure that we're handing over the work we are doing to them, because that's merely most of the ISPs and the majority of the people that are running genuine networks, the people that we are working for, the people that we are resellers of. This is what these people did. It might have taken them long, but let's not actually cut corners. Let's do the same. It's fine. So that is the first one. We need to make sure that with the submission or the closing date that's happening tomorrow, let's make sure that most of us do submit. It's merely comments. Let's put those comments, all of us from different structures. Even if you were to put a submission as an individual, let them see that there is most of us out there. And the request is, why also should we accept just 30% ownership of that? And this is the issue of addressing the entrance into the auction that I'm talking about. Now, we need to make sure that our Black people participate and they are part of, when we talk about access and ownership. This is what we're talking about. We need to do it very firmly. We need to make sure that we're not only talking about 30%. Why not 40? Why not 50? Maybe think about it. We need to do that. And number two is that most of our SMEs that want to apply for these licenses when this moratorium is being removed, we need to talk about the cost of these licenses, because mostly our people, as we speak, they cannot even afford being at home. You know, who's going to be thinking of raising some money of what, 700, 400,000 of just a license transfer? Nobody has that type of money. So we need to really look at that. That is the first problem that I'm saying, it's at ICASA. But remember, when you now have a license, we need to move into what we call the IP space. When you now want to become a genuine supplier, you don't want to always be a reseller. Now, that allows you to be able to register with Afrinic. Afrinic holds all the resources of Africa in terms of the internet. Now, Afrinic holds these IP addresses, and obviously, the people with licenses are able to participate in Afrinic as voters. You have the voting power also when you are at Afrinic. Now, obviously, Afrinic is dominated by South Africa, and the voting powers, obviously, is held by South Africa, because all these MNOs that we are talking about, all these ISPs, all these guys that hold the license, they are sitting at Afrinic and they have the voting power. Now, what does that mean? Obviously, when you are at Afrinic, you register at Afrinic and you are being given an IPv4 block and IPv6 block, which we may be aware that we are moving to the IPv6. The IPv4 is really depleted and it became a scarce resource. Dr. Leon, I need to emphasize this to you. The more we are talking about access and ownership and we are not addressing these issues, we are keep on running into a very high speed in this wheel. We're not going anywhere. Let's take some time and go fix that type of problems, because this is the real access and ownership. We need the resources of Africa, and particularly South Africa, which is these blocks of these IP addresses. We want them to be sitting on the hands of our people. There are many reasons which I'm coming to them. If we achieve that, we are also achieving dilution of votes in Afrinic, where we have these people directing the resources of our country, because the minute anybody connects on the internet, let's be honest, go on Google now yourself, type what is my IP, and it will give you your ideal IP address that your network has been given to you. Those resources, that's what we are talking about. That means that's a special IP. You are the only person that has that IP address under that network. These are the resources that I'm talking about. That is the only thing that makes you connect on the internet. It starts there. And if we leave it from this point, we are going to have a very big problem of, building resellers. So I'm saying, let's start with that issue. We need to make sure that our people hold these resources. There is definitely, as we speak, just to add on that, there is a huge investigation that is going on where these IP addresses also are being sold into the gray market. One IP address, public IP address, can go up to 30 to 40 US dollars. Do the calculation today. Millions of those are being resold somewhere. We are not going to solve that problem if we also don't own those IP addresses. The other burning issue around these IP addresses, it's what I call the black opinion online. Now, the IP addresses are not only for you to actually configure it into a router. and so that you are able to have access into a particular server, whether it's Netflix or whatever. It's also a DNS issue, which is the domain name. Roles.co.za, that could be your legacy. LOCKMAN.co.za, that could be a legacy of your family. These IP addresses also represent the domain names. We all need websites tomorrow. We all need our personalized email addresses of our business. None of our Black people are owning those resources. What does that mean? Is that if DENIS today creates a platform and puts it online, he's going to put that platform online through AfriHost, through whoever that he got that domain from. They have a policy which they call takedown policy. That policy allows them to basically, if they differ with your views and what you are putting online, they will remove you. Comrades, what does that mean? That means we still don't own the means of the internet. They will remove you because that domain or public IP they own. So that is the first one. And I'm saying we really need to look at it very critical, this issue of IP addresses. I know, Comrade Mbulelo, the likes of your BBI do allow our ISPs to actually utilize your public IP blocks and you can rent them. I know that is basically a shortcut. As I said, let's drill deeper and move from the unknown to known unknowns. Let's actually look at this information and see our strategy in terms of getting these resources on the hands of our Black people. There is definitely cost also, because anything that is related to money, when we talk about these things, it's a very subtle way to say, I don't want Black people in here. You're already marginalized. Anything that speaks money, it's going to kick you out. That is the reality. So we need to speak, when we talk about funding mechanisms and all these things, Victor, we need to look at such to say, where are we finding money in government and advise them to help our SMEs to be able to afford these public IP addresses at AfriNIC. That is point number one. And we've got resources and access of very, very scarce resource on the hands of our people. Now, this is before we are coming to spectrum and all those things. We need to think about those. And also, when we have done that, I can also go to Victor's platform and register my domain with him. Whatever opinion that I have online, at least it is not an opinion that is controlled by somebody else because they own public IPs. That is issue number one of protecting the Black opinion online. We need to think about it very thorough. Then obviously we can come to the issue of how now the networks operate. Now, obviously in terms of how network operates, we are going to talk about issues of spectrum, equipment, all those things. Dr. Rolls, the problem here, and that's the question that you asked me earlier, in terms of the connectivity problem and the claim of these networks saying they've got a broader network coverage. Here is a bigger problem now when it comes to this issue of these MNOs that we have given them, these superpowers in this country. I regret what Motsepe Kasabori did 1994 leading 1995, because this is the birth of this Vodacom and MTN. It is not a nice transition. It is not a nice story. We know that there are a lot of teachers and nurses that were given licenses to address this issue. We know that those licenses are still dormant. There's a lot of people that didn't use those licenses. The people who are still using those licenses are majority white-owned companies. And including them is these big MNOs. These big MNOs, they can do as they please on their networks because our government doesn't regulate their networks to the point where we want it. We need to monitor them to that level. But the problem we are having also is that the people that are representing government in those boards, are also looking after their pockets. They don't care about me and you on the ground. So they will protect them. So the issue of coverage is that they cannot prove that. They cannot prove that. If you calculate issues of SIM cards, there are SIM cards that can sit in machines, and you claim that you have a particular number of users on your network. That is one example in terms of how they can actually float the numbers. The issue of coverage also, we don't have a tool that we can actually test against them to say, you say you have 99%, on what basis are you using that? It's because government does not have the mechanism. It does not even have access in verifying this information that these people are claiming, which in my view, personal view, is that I feel that that is a complete hogwash. They are telling lies with these numbers because we are sitting in those areas. We know where there is no coverage. We know for sure. We just need to make sure that we do not also allow government to be driven by this hogwash also. So that is also one point in terms of the issue of connectivity. Now, how do we also play a role in there? There is an opportunity in the TV white space spectrum. It's very simple, in my view, it's a very simple technology. It's the very same thing that we are doing today. We are plugging radios, it doesn't matter which OEM. We are plugging radios, we are looking for line of sight. It's a basic thing. We are all doing that. We either going point to multi-point or we're going point to point. That is exactly the language and the resources of the people that we have here. The problem is one. The problem is with access to funds. The TV white space opportunity, it's definitely here. And we need to make sure that we pick up our hand and we're saying we are here. There's a number of POCs that have already been ran in this country. Now, there are funds that we are getting from US. They have funded the likes of your WAPA. The likes of WAPA obviously have members that are on the ground and that can test the TV white space. Yes, there are a lot of OEMs. We're talking about your Adaptrum. We're talking about your Redwin. We're talking about the other one. I forgot their name. They blue in color. Those guys are the ones that have been approved with our frequency tables with the CSIR. These guys have been approved because we are approving their radios. But there's a problem here, Dr. Leon. We are approving these radios. We are not talking about building our own radios. So what does that mean? We also are going to buy these radios to install because they approve those radios, not for us. So we are merely just installers. So we need to really think about that one very deep. The likes of your WAPA, in which I understand why money was also, grants were thrown into WAPA, is that they have an advantage over us. You cannot be talking about building networks if you also don't have access to land. It's impossible. Most of the ISPs today, you're not aware that they are ex-farmers or not existing farmers. Farmers are actually ISPs. They run these small towns. You can't do anything. Purely for one thing, if you want to build a tower, he's got the land, he'll give you power, he'll give you everything, right? So we need to address that issue and saying, how are we mobilizing ourselves on the ground, Dr. Leon, in addressing that? Yes, we understand the structure under the telecom group, which they've got Gyro that looks after property, the property that they are building networks on. The model is there. We need to go look at it in terms of how are we addressing our opportunities. And also, we need to make sure that we are also encouraging the building of radios ourselves, where we are able to support Ms. LOCKMAN, who is building these type of radios that are typo approved by ICASA. So I think we need to look at that. We also need to see that we are funding some sort of funds somewhere to basically fund these POCs that government is trying to speed up, because the process is to see if we can commercialize the TV white space sooner. And as soon as we commercialize it, we need to make sure that it prioritizes the Black ISPs in this country, which is all of us that are sitting here. It's very, very important, and we should not, I repeat, fall within the spiral of the silence here. We need to raise our hands and saying we are the right people to actually be in the forefront when the TV white space is commercialized. So that is what I think is very, very critical. But the last one, Dr. Rose, that I want to emphasize, it's this issue of universal access, universal service access obligations that these MNOs hold. ICASA, when it gives you a license, it wants you to, it attaches obligations on this license to say, I want you to go connect how many schools. I want you to basically, in this particular financial year, this is what I want you to do. I want you to go comply and connect these schools. When these obligations started, you will remember container container about Vodacom, about MTN and all of that. They were ticking the box, not to say that they were offering services. They were just ticking a box because most of us were not owning cell phones. So they basically brought these containers way too, for us to have access into obviously telephones. That was their obligations. Today, the obligation has shifted. It's talking about connecting of schools. We need to make sure that that obligation prioritizes our SMEs. It's not the network, these MNOs that must go and actually do these installations themselves, because they give it to their cronies and their cronies still benefit on the very same obligation budgets that they are having. Some of them are happy not to meet those obligations and pay penalties. They're more than happy instead of sharing money with us. So we need to make sure that we pinpoint that problem, and we're saying the obligation must be more stricter. The installation of those must be done by our people. All of us don't have to necessarily own networks. There is an opportunity today. That is the opportunity that we need to look at. We'll do an audit and go look at these schools that they're saying they are connecting. Those schools must also, because when you build a network, you don't just walk away. These networks must be monitored and maintained by our people. That should be part of the obligations. And this is us not being apologetic about including Black people, because they are nowhere, as I said. So we need to make sure that we really enforce that, Dr. Ross, to ensure that our people are really participating. Vodacom has managed to do it in giving birth to rain. Today, we know that. Go look at their recent figures. 234 million that they are claiming under capital expenditure towards rain. Let's leave the other things that they are telling us, it's back-to-back agreements with them. They are funding them, and that is an example to say what Vodacom is doing, and we are talking about the one. It is doable. It's doable with all of us. With those obligations, there's nothing wrong in saying the towers that you are owning, yourself and MTN, I want a set aside where you are also giving these ISPs space on your towers, so that also they are able to provide services like your TV white space and stuff. That should be part of the obligations. I don't know why are we being scuffled and be afraid to actually push. We need to push for this and tell them that if you already assist as an MVNO like RAIN, it is done before. When we talk about ESD and SD, look at such things in building other MVNOs within the very same infrastructure that you own. Buying and selling of data, what legacy are we going to build there? There's a problem. We cannot all be resellers. We are aware of a lot of SPs that were given appointments under SA Connect that are now in court with some of these white people because they weren't let's call it fronting and saying they own networks. And they're using these white people's networks and saying it's their networks. Tomorrow, if they're not making money because these guys are making money, they come in and saying, no, this is what these people are doing. We also need to check ourselves and stop such attitude and build proper networks. I agree with Comrade Mbulelo that he will wait until Jesus comes, until we make sure that we are definitely benefiting a black child and we are building a black legacy. It's very, very important. And I'm not really very phased in terms of somebody saying that is racist. That is not racist. It's let's call it, it's patriotism. It's me looking after my own in that case, for us to actually build these networks. So Dr. Rolls, in summary, that is basically what I want to put on the table in terms of the problems that we're having and also the solutions that we must look at on the table, and also go up this spiral that I've actually mentioned. The things that we don't know should not scare us. It's okay for now, but let's actually move up and come to a level where we know what we don't know so that we can empower ourselves. And when we are now empowered, we can build strategies. So in essence, when we come and make noise around the spectrum and the wall, I think it's very clear that we put it on record here. All of that effort is touching on this information that we are talking about. It is not just us making noise that we want the spectrum. We actually looked at the internet to the core. As I speak, I see on the site here that Comrade Zuko has put in a tender that is sitting with SETA. The tender is for the bandwidth and internet services to SETA and its clients for a period of 3 years. This tender has been going back and forth at SETA. We were once called at SETA with the industry. And this was then when it was Dr. Situmo. Dr. Situmo had a problem with this tender that, as we speak, it's out. Here is the problem with this tender. This tender is about the internet transit. Now we are talking wholesale now. When we now play with on the level of these IP addresses, we are not just talking about just internet, we are talking bandwidth and transit. That is wholesale. Obviously, this is where we're getting it from, the likes of your OpenServe, the likes of your work online. There are a lot of wholesalers, your China Telecoms and them. Now, this is where the problem is. They had a requirement of the 30% or 40% subcontracting. The industry is saying to SETA, no, this is hogwash. We're not going to do that. You need to remove that component because it's not feasible. That is wrong, because they're saying there aren't black players that are owning IP spaces. There aren't black players that are interconnecting at your NEP Africas and many other exchange points in the country. They are unable to come and provide us with the transit prices. That's a lie, because we are there. We, some of us, have worked hard for the longest time to actually prove that black people can actually interconnect. I can interconnect directly at NEP Africa and show them as a proof that there is nothing special that Vodacom is doing. If Vodacom can have an AS number at Isando, NEP Africa, funny enough, the company I work for, which is Boima, it's next to them and it's entirely black, operated by ourselves with our struggles. How did we get there? How am I able to have an AS same as Vodacom? So that is basically the example that I'm saying we need to look at and make sure that we do not fall in the spiral of silence. We are intelligent, we know our story, we are building these networks. Let's make sure that we are also holding the people in government responsible. Thank you so much, President.
Thank you very much, President MOTSAMAI. That was very eye-opening and mind-boggling. We are off the cuff on this webinar that we're calling in Fast Forward. We were looking for fast and hard solutions. We've definitely captured a lot of those solutions. Steph, I hear MOTSAMAI is mentioning a lot about Vodacom. Victor was talking about innovation earlier on. We also had Umbulelo coming in there and throwing his weight around, and everything now looking at exactly the blockages that are there. as an advocate, Steph, but also as someone that has sat in the Industry Transformation Unit with CETA, you're in the BEE Sector Council right now. These blockages that are there and moving forward, are we ever going to win with these things? Now, you know, listening to all of this, we've struggled so much as Black people. We have to continue to struggle. You know, in 1994, I thought the struggle was over, but it was actually the beginning. And I can see now that it's even going to be more so. These struggles are really and truly now becoming annoying, for lack of a better word. And we said that there are people, the wrong people, that are sitting on the right table, making the wrong decisions for the right people. And we're also saying that those people cannot talk transformation language, and they are the blockage that needs to be unplugged. Those are the people and those are the things that are the legislation of this country. It cannot be that we come from an apartheid regime that was a crime to mankind and to the people of this country, and yet today we are still have to succumb to apartheid protection style of legislation, as well as all these systems and processes that we put together. Now, can you just, off the cuff, and tell us what are your thoughts around that? And most importantly, we are looking for fast forward solutions, and we have our team that's busy capturing of what exactly needs to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rose, and all the previous speakers. To answer your question, Doctor, I'm going to touch on two issues. I'm going to touch on the regulator, which is ICASA, and then I'm going to touch on the work that is being done in terms of BE as well as transformation and where we are. I do note Comrade Mbulelo's sentiments that we should be solution driven. So I think that is a good sentiment to share. Now, Dr. Rose, the problem that we sit with is that we were excluded from participating by policies and legislation during apartheid, in which it denied Black people, including women, access and control, right? More than 2 decades after this, and in spite of promulgation of a broad range of policy and legislative instruments, it still is not enough, Pres. Now, I read an article from Business Tech in 2018, which showed us that 92% of the mobile subscriber market share was dominated by Vodacom, MTN, and Cell C. Now, Pres, as a lawmaker and as a transformation activist, I ask myself how this is still possible right now. How MVNOs only share 1.79% in the entire market share, and this is 2018, Pres. I also sit with a question of how we plan to connect 25,000 schools, how we plan to connect all underserviced areas in light of COVID-19, with only these only these 4 telcos, and how SMMEs cannot get into the space. Now, Pres, I've been studying the Economic Communications Act, Electronic Communications Act. I do know that as the Alliance, we've made several commentaries on the amendment, which has been stopped. That is also the issue that we struggle with, is the fact that our parliament is not amending the laws. We are not looking at these things. We are not changing things for the developing society and the problems we sit with today. We are still dealing with acts as old as 1984, even before 94. So we need to ask ourselves as lawmakers of the country, why is it taking so long? Is it an issue at parliament? And if that's the case, then we need to move to a point where we can say, what will move this country forward? We're also sitting with a population that is 60% youth-based, which means that who are we making the laws for? Most of the people in parliament will not live long enough to see the effects of what's happening today. That is the reality, President. We're facing a pandemic that could mean that deaths are going to be accelerated because of various issues. we're sitting with the issue that when laws are made, we are not thinking 20 or 30 years in. We are only thinking now in the next 5 or 10 years. And that's the problem that we sit with. In terms of the Act, Dr. Halls, is ICASA, when it grants a license, this is specifically subsection 5(9)(b), it must look at promoting the empowerment of historically disadvantaged persons, including women and youth and people with disabilities, in accordance with the requirements. Now, I've listened to President MOTSAMAI, I've listened to yourself, I've listened to Comrade Victor, and I don't think this is the reality. I don't think that the regulator is regulating this to a point where it understands what must happen and it is implementing it. Secondly, Pres, Chapter 10 of this Act deals with competition matters, right? It says that when the regulator is seeing that a licensee has a significant market power, right, and it is dominant and it is in control of essential facilities, or it has a vertical relationship with the authority that could cause harm to competition, then it must intervene. Chapters 10, sections 6, 7, and 8 provides that ICASA must assess the market, its pro-competitive terms, and whether there is market dominance by one of these license holders. Now, Dr. Rose, I've just told you that in 2018, Vodacom was sharing 43.79% of the market share. MTN was coming in at 31.7%. And they had Cell C, Shame, who's being assisted by them, who has 17%. When you consolidate this, it means that 4 telcos are sharing 92% of the market share. So, to be honest, Pres, there is no way any new entrant will be able to come in because the regulator is not giving us the report of the market dominance investigation it has done. It has not done this, President. If we look at things like license costs, why has ICASA not by this time implemented other ways to give licenses without expecting all these amounts that must be paid? I mean, for example, a license transfer of individual license is 63,000 Rand. If you look at the mandate on ICASA about promoting empowerment of historically disadvantaged persons, don't you ever sit and think to yourself that, but is this promoting it? Is the cost and the plethora of disadvantages the SME already faces, are our costs helping them? Is it helping a SMME or a new player even that a license is costing 12,000 Rand? This is now a class license. Is it helping? I go to issues like the moratorium on individual licenses that has still not been lifted. The Act states that licenses may be issued for a period not exceeding 20 years or shorter, right? And it must be renewed in terms of provisions of the Act. Now, my concern is that if the moratorium is not lifted, it means there can be no entrance to acquire individual license. Now, we all know that it's critical to have an individual license because it gives you license spectrum. Now, Dr. Rolls, even like yourself, our Larrys in the Free State, I've been told that you guys are using unlicensed spectrum, right? Now, just as a layman's terms, I'm an attorney. So you guys have put this thing in basic terms for me to say that if a company uses unlicensed bands, right, it has a lot of reliability and performance issues in compared to licensed spectrum, right? So which means your OPEX costs are more. There's a lot more disturbance on the bandwidth. You have all these call-out issues. So as the SMME, even trying to comply with all these laws and all these red tape, you get there and you have your network now. And now you still sit with the issue where can't access licensed spectrum. Now, ICASA must tell us why we cannot access licensed spectrum, why there's no policy reform and changes in the way it's operating and the way it conducts business, because clearly this is a problem for us sitting here today. When we go to the National Development Plan and what government wants to do, now in the National Development Plan, government is telling us that it seeks to create jobs, right? By 2030, it seeks to create 11 million jobs. One of the critical keys of how it plans to do this, seeing that we're talking strategy, is that it aims to raise competitiveness by lowering the cost of doing business, improving skills and innovation, and targeting state support to specific sectors. Now,
I ask myself, with all the red tape of licensing and all the uncertainty, how a license cost and how a moratorium on it is raising competitive, how it's lowering the cost of doing business, and how we will ever achieve the national development plan goals with systems that operate like this, President. Dr. Rose, when we go further into the issues with the regulator, we see that not only are they not doing any market investigations, and not only are they not releasing any studies about why the dominance is the way it is, they are also telling us that there will be no streamline and improvement of efficiency of regulatory processes. So why can they not simplify this process? Why can they not bring down the costs so that new players can come in? Why are our policies not progressive? Yet you have Black people that are running these commissions. They are there. They are part of us, because I do believe that transformation is a personal thing. It resonates with a person, and it comes from the fight that we have fought. It also comes from where we come from as a country. We don't have land. We don't have access to the economy. We don't have access to simple things like licenses to operate. We just want to operate and do business. Yet there's all these barriers. So in my opinion, Dr. Rose, I think from a legal perspective is that the entities are not implementing the laws. They are not implementing the NDP. They are not monitoring implementation once it's done. And they are just leaving it up to private business to tell us how to run a country. They're leaving it up to people to tell us how to do these things. When we look at the processes that's currently happening from a spectrum perspective, in terms of what ICASA is doing, there's currently about 5 different processes happening in the same space. This is now the one. It includes the Competition Commission data market inquiry. It includes the ICASA notice on licensing processes. So, Dr. Rose, in my opinion, that we need to get some certainty. There needs to be some legislative certainty about where we're going as a country in the ICT space. And that is just from the regulator point of view. I'm of the opinion that if the regulator can get its house in order and start regulating this market to be pro-competitive and to be pro-benefit for historically disadvantaged individuals, we wouldn't have this problem that we sit with today. We wouldn't have all of you that are Black ISPs coming and still complaining that we are not getting into the sector. So that's the simple thing from the side of the regulator that I can say, is that the regulator needs to do its job and regulate. It should not get involved in all these other issues. At no way can we have 4 or 5 telcos dominating the market space. That is completely incorrect, and it should be condemned with the way that we are condemning it today, Dr. Rose. The second thing I want to talk on, without making my presentation too long, is the transformation and BEE. Now, the concept of radical economic transformation leans itself to being about economic inclusiveness, historical redress, and redistribution. This is now wealth and asset redistribution. It also says that we must do away with the structure of production that we inherited from colonialism and apartheid. We must dismantle the colonialism and apartheid patterns of ownership, management, and control of systems and structures of the economy. That is what radical economic transformation tells us, Dr. Rose. Now, I see that the trend in South Africa from a transformation perspective is that ownership is not real economic ownership. It's just legal ownership. So people only are legal owners, but they have no decision-making ability in day-to-day operations. And this is completely wrong. And this is where the fronting comes in, that they put a Black person there on the board, but this Black person can never make a decision. He doesn't have voting rights or shares. So this is the one thing that must change, President. The practice of fronting by some companies has been identified as a significant problem since the implementation of BEE. Fronting is a gross abuse of a very important process of economic transformation. It undermines the very purpose of BEE policies and why they were established. We also do know that Black economic empowerment has not yet benefited a wide enough segment of society. Fronting and tender abuse is an unintended consequence of an overemphasis and diversity of ownership and senior management in implementation of BEE. So you've seen that when BEE hit the space, You only saw your very politically connected elite businessmen who have deep links to politicians benefit. And this is what started the whole problem, corruption. That the fact that corruption went on and it wasn't dealt with. It wasn't dealt with swiftly and strictly. So you only had a few billionaires that come from BE because they are close to the politically elite. It did not benefit the black woman who has a catering business and who makes a living of 2,000 Rand a week. It didn't benefit her. It benefited someone who was close to someone, who was close to a minister. That's who it benefited. So that's where the first problem, we must deal with this corruption element as soon as possible. Otherwise, we can kiss goodbye to all these good things that we are talking about today. A next important point that I think one must be honest about is that BE has proved to be a fatal blow and that black nationalists have not envisioned. What has happened is that, as I've said, you've seen a few elites benefiting and the bulk of black SMEs or black business did not benefit at all. Also, you see issues where you are brought into a company, it gets a big tender or big contract, and all of a sudden it pushes you out and gives you a payout. So you come in, you pose that you are part of this company, you are a black director, and then once the big business is received, they then tell you, okay, let's pay you out, and there you go. Yet the business has gotten the benefit. So I think it's also about people have come in, taken advantage of it, and left the space instead of staying in the space. But we all do know how it works, that when you're in these white companies and you are director, they work you out. They frustrate you to a point where you can't operate. And this is the practice that must stop. One area that is fighting us from a triple BE and transformation point is the QSEs. And these are now your entities between 15 and 20 million. 25 and 50 million, sorry. So these are those companies with turnovers that look like 15 and 20 and 50 million, 25 and 50 million. So what they are saying to us is they are saying they simply can't transform because they don't see themselves bringing in a black person as a director. The most thing they are fighting, Dr. Rawls, is ownership. They are saying they don't see how bringing in someone that's non-white can own a piece of their business. And this is the type of attitude we receive when we take these transformation policies to the QSEs especially. It's the attitude we receive. So what they then do is they say, well, we don't care about this BE thing. We'll just continue and do business on our own. And this comes in what you've mentioned, Prez, that we need black suppliers. We need level 1 or level 2 suppliers that are making these things. We need manufacturing that is in South Africa. We need distribution companies that are in South Africa that play a role, because now, if they are getting licenses and all this material from overseas, do you think they really care that they can't be a level 1 or 2? They don't care, because they are still continuing doing business. And this is what we are seeing. We are seeing a strong resistance to transformation from especially your QSE sector, which is your companies that have 25 to 50 million balance sheet. This is now not your Vodacoms and NTMs, and also not your SMMEs. So what we've said is that if that cannot be entrenched, because it is the law says you must transform. What we are saying today, Dr. Rawls, is not something that we are getting from our minds. The law says transform. The law says that there's a NDP. The law says that there should be radical economic transformation in our lifetime. That's what the law says. We are not saying these things. So to conclude my whole sentiment about transformation and where we go and what we should do is that we should make sure that we can monitor this thing, either by us as stakeholders, as NGOs that fight for inclusion. We should call government and we should say, we should hold them to book and say, but why is there still this problem? And this is something we have been doing. I do know that. We've been asking government, but why is it still like this? Why is we have to advocate and we have to be activists of this thing? Because clearly our regulator is not regulating the market. It's not assisting us. It's not telling the truth about the reality of what's going on. I do mention, Dr. Rose, you said that we have people that are managing the sectors who have never been SMEs. They live on salaries. They don't know what it is to be denied participation. You can't even get in. This is not even, we're trying to say we want to do business. We can't even access it. And that's the reality. It's like when people get into these positions, especially our black people, they forget what they are supposed to do and what the issues on the ground are. So it's this culture that we have to get out. We have to be serious and make transformation a personal thing, something that we live by, and something that we will fight continuously and we'll fight for. Because as much as apartheid is over, our economic liberation has still not happened. This is for Black people as well as for women in the sector. That economic liberation is something that we must still continuously fight for. And I guess it's our duty as the next generation coming in to continue that fight for it. So we need to be unapologetic about being progressive agents of transformation. We need to lobby for ownership on all levels, on boards and management control levels. We shouldn't just be on the boards as directors. We should lobby for voting rights in these companies. We should make a concerted effort to conscientize the unconscious fronters who are given shares and planted on boards and all management control levels in various sectors, and they are unconsciously serving as gatekeepers and defenders of the status quo. When they are conscious, Dr. Rose, they might turn into being fearless, unapologetic, true agents of socio-economic transformation, fighting the system from within. So our Black brothers that are there, they need to be conscientized to what the problems are and what we are fighting. Hence, I keep saying it's an internal thing. We need to consider advocating for compliance targets of all elements of BEE focus on equity first, in order to address the imbalance of the past and level the playing fields. As long as we don't level the playing fields, Dr. Rose, there shall be no equality. That is the reality. We need to level the playing fields. We need to ensure that all legislative frameworks guiding BEE must be grounded in the principles of equity before equality. So we must say that equality cannot happen without equity. That should be our mantra going into these things. And we need to also always remember, Dr. Rose, that most of the problems we contend with right now are direct consequences of colonialism and apartheid. It was therefore absolutely necessary that we must never stop talking about colonialism and its sister neo-colonialism and apartheid, because then you leave those who have always believed in this crime against humanity to be comfortable. And that comes from our very vocal Chief Justice Mokheng, where we need to constantly have these discussions, Dr. Rose. We need to constantly conscientize people about what colonialism did and what we need to do in order to rectify it. So, Dr. Rose, in short, those are my few submissions on the two topics. Thank you very much.
No, thank you very much, Chair, for that perspective and that view. Once again, we are talking off the cuff with very progressive and patriotic comrades that are in the space fighting for ICT, opening those gates and ensuring access and ownership. We've just had a briefing, Dennis, from Steph, that was talking more on the legal side and what is actually happening and what are the hindrances and the blockages there, and some very good recommendations in terms of how do we then move forward from there. Dennis, you're in the space of the creative arts, multimedia, and I know that again, Victor, this is another space where you find people like Dennis always being told that, you know what, this space is only for white people, and ultimately Mbulelo, like you've seen it happen before, and I think you've also mentioned it, is an instance where you find that you give an opportunity to Black people, we go and give it back to white people. But also the vice versa is also true, where you find that a lot of the white people and all these companies, after 3 or 4 levels down MOTSAMAI, they end up giving the work right back to DENIS. We are on the streaming platform that is run by DENIS. Everything that you see here is operated 100% by DENIS and his little team from home before he gets arrested. He's running it from home, from his dining room. And we've seen there's this thing, Chair, that is called Black excellence that we have lost. As Black people, we used to excel in excellence in every way, in the culture, where we are, how we grow up, how we work together. All of those things got lost somewhere, somehow, because we stopped being conscious to what we are as Africans.
the spirit of Africanism. We were great once. We were superior once as Africa. And right now we are proving that as Africa, we can actually unite, and we've come up with some brilliant solutions and some brilliant ways of dealing with this COVID-19. Again, that is Black excellence right there. Our president and his response to how he's dealing with COVID-19 is Black excellence. That is what we are looking at. So Dennis, in your field, I know there's a lot that is going on in the multimedia, the creative arts. It's one of the industries that is actually booming. In actual fact, Victor, you know, when we looked at STEM, if you look at arts, arts is a science. It's actually a science. So because of this particular industry, it talks of data sovereignty. I see Ayandam Kize was talking about data sovereignty there, and we're talking about that we should stop being resellers. Now, here in the creative arts, Dennis, just like the others have shared their perspectives, you are off the cuff and you are free to talk and tell us what is happening in that industry really, and what are the blockages that we need to unplug in order for us to actually transform that industry, so that when we open that trunk and that chest, the treasure is only one. It's opportunities for our people, it's wealth. I know government likes talking about creating jobs for our people. Hey, Mulelo, we don't want jobs. Please, government, people do not want jobs. We don't want jobs. We don't need jobs. We need opportunities. We need to create wealth. We need you to open the doors. Let us in there. Let us be the ones that are creating that content, that creative content. SABC is spending so much money, and yet there are no opportunities for our people. And yet you want to create jobs. Jobs is something that comes after you've created wealth, after you've opened work opportunities, after you've created business opportunities. Dennis, you're on the cuff. You're off the cuff.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Rose. Thank you very much. I'm sure everyone can hear me, which shows of a thumbs up. Okay, thanks. It's a very difficult one, but I won't go too wide. I think I'll just narrow down on something. I know that one, government intervention can be part of the solution. And I'll mainly talk about communications and what's happening in the communication space. And I'll drill down to advertising. Now, as we know, and some don't, is that the advertising industry in Africa is dominated by multinationals, like Ogilvy, Gray, and a few others. There are other South African-born companies, but obviously they're not Black-owned companies, right? So these are like Joe Public and a few others who are really, really big players who deal with hundreds of millions of budgets, communication budgets, which include marketing, PR, advertising. Now, the problem is it's very difficult for Black people to get into the space because within those companies, both the multinationals and the minority-owned big advertising agencies hardly have any serious Black creative directors. So now and again, they'll get a Black CEO and those type of things, and that's fair. But in terms of the things that drive the organization day to day, it becomes very difficult. This happens, a lot of Black creators find themselves having to run small spaza shop creative agencies, right? And some have the knack for advertising, but cannot. They'll never be able to play the advertising game because there's lots of money in advertising. When you even look at media buying, when you talk about a communication budget, you're talking about media buying, PR, marketing, activation, and advertising all together. It's huge amounts of money that flows because companies need to communicate, they need to sell their products and so forth. So the problem is that it's very difficult now to find people and Black people really active in the space who really understand the consumers, because they are the consumers. the emerging black market, you find white creatives creating campaigns for black people, but there is no connection. And that's part of the problems. They don't have enough strong, high-level creative, like creative directors or executive creative directors, to assist with making decisions so they can create campaigns that speak directly to their people. So they'll be added on as almost inside consultants to align the conversation so it speaks more to black people than it does. So you find that some ideas in advertising and so forth becomes extremely problematic, where the ad comes off cheesy, the taste is off. You don't really enjoy watching ads because they don't truly represent us as black people. So that's within the private sector of the communication space. So even the activations that happen, marketing that happens, you can tell that no, it doesn't connect with us as consumers. And we buy because we have a sense of culture. So even buying habits are culture. Green sunlight is part of a buying culture in a household. It has nothing to do with its advertising or anything, because a lot of the times, those creative outlets don't really speak our language, they don't communicate to us, because we're not creating those ads for ourselves. But that's a private sector. The advertising agencies, if you go in there, media buying agencies, most of the mid-level, high-level management black representation is close to non-existing. It's difficult for someone like a DENIS, who has a small company like a Pixel Tone, who could deliver, say, post-production services, right? And some animation or video production, it becomes a problem to get in there, because obviously people who have the opportunities, they won't relate to you. You don't look like them. They don't trust you. There's no cordial business transaction that you can do, and that causes some of those blockages, because now you have a 45-year-old white woman running a project, and a 24-year-old black male walks in and says, I can do the job. It does become a problem, because there's a cultural distance there. Whereas if there's more black people, obviously it'll be much easier for that transaction to happen. The black company gets a chance to show itself. Like Comrade Victor was saying, is that there has to be the one that comes in to enable the others to come in. And that's a shame, because there's so many black creatives. In my multimedia class back in 2006, 2007, it was a predominantly black class. I don't know where most of those people are. Some of them have given up multimedia. They've gone into media sales. They've gone into other areas. They've preferred doing lecturing. And you find that only about 20% or 15% of us are actually going in to compete. And we've done high-level work. We've done work for big organizations. So part of that blockage is that there isn't, the private sector is not allowing more and giving that opportunity, like Comrade Victor said. Now let's go into government. Government is the only entity right now that can enable black creative service companies to thrive. Department of Communications, GCIS, is the biggest media buyer, and government has so many programs that can run advertising and prioritize black-owned advertising agencies or communication agencies, from PR, as I said, activations, the entire 9 yards, from a national level, provincial level, down to your local municipalities. Government can be the biggest media buyers, the biggest advertisers in the country, because there's so much that government is doing that we don't know, but they don't run ads to let people know. They don't run promotions on television to let people know that these are funds that are available. Small business continuously running communication to let people know how they can onboard. We shouldn't wait for the president to give an address to break down what funds are available and then for us to speak about them. The departments themselves can use Department of Communication and GCIS to distribute messaging. Use Black creative service agencies in advertising, communication, PR to distribute all the good things that government has, all the programs, all the things that we have as government. Everything that's happening as government, the reason why the people say that government doesn't work is because a lot of the general population don't see these things. It's people who are activists who get to see what government is doing, and we have to pick the fights where we see they're lacking in. And that's where the part of the unblocking of this innovation, where you get people will have innovative frameworks that could help with communication, find different ways to get the message out. Here now we have access to live streaming, we have access to television, the media has opened up. We have access to outdoor, although us as Black people don't really own a lot of outdoor media, but we have access to these various things. We now can look at options where we are currently playing and then we can build up. The government through GCIS communications, we definitely can build Black advertising agencies who would then be able to build some kind of financial stability to go into the free market and to the open market and compete and be able to go to a Tiger Brands and to a Unilever and get contracts directly from them and go to these other agencies and get contracts without having to go through these other advertising agencies. They can compete neck for neck, but we don't have a financial capacity to build to be as big as an Ogilvy and as a Gray and as all of these other big agencies, as a TVWA. We don't have the financial capabilities, but through government intervention, by continuously prioritizing us to run advertising for government, for every important program that government has, where the beneficiaries are the public, we want to run adverts. We want to create adverts for all these government projects. Give us the adverts. We're ready. We have the creativity. We have the expertise. We have the knowledge. We want to be able to assist government with spreading the good work they're already doing. And we'll continue putting pressure on them on where we feel they're lacking. So, Prez, that's part of unblocking that GCIS communications, government communications can act almost immediately, by ensuring that every single government department has an ad running from correctional services to whichever department it is. It doesn't matter. Every single department under government can run adverts. Prioritize us. We're ready to create ads. We're ready to create strong creative because we know that we are the beneficiaries of these programs. We know how to create the messaging. So it touches us and it speaks to us. Bring it to us. We're ready. We're willing. We legally compliant. We have SARS. We have PE certificates. We're on all the platforms that need to be there, and we're ready. We have portfolios. We have portfolios of evidence. We have work. We are able to do the work. Gone is the time where Black creators feel ostracized, going to agencies and having to work for 5,000 or 3,000. At some point, I remember one of my ex-schoolmates working for 3,500 Rand for almost 2 years at an agency. That's just embarrassing for someone who was talented, who was a great student and had a great portfolio coming out. But because of the trust level, we shouldn't allow ourselves to be tested by other people when we have government intervention that can happen now, and we can create ads that makes us strong enough to go into the free market, and we'll be able to compete in the free market once we have some kind of financial capability to grow teams and be able to be nimble enough also to be able to create ads for products which we buy anyway. We should be creating ads for products we buy because we understand. We can't create adverts for things that we don't understand. So that's the one way that we can really, really unblock these, unblock the flow, because innovation lies there in being enabled, you know. So they just really need to open up the gates. They need to unblock themselves and show that creative service providers in the various communication spaces, as I've mentioned before, and I repeat them again, the communication pipeline is very big. It has advertising, it has marketing, it has activation, it has PR in it also. So that's where we will be able to thrive and grow our companies. We'll be able to go into the open market and compete head to head and be able to capture markets from TVWAs and the Greys and so forth, and be able to become formidable forces against them to ensure that we have proper market cap in the advertising, in the communication space, so we can utilize these various platforms that are mushrooming now, like the live streaming and so forth, and not just look at traditional media only. Look at new media, look at new ways to tell stories with virtual reality and augmented reality. Be able to team up with someone like Peter Vick and sit down with them, knowing that there's a connectivity that exists, and see how we can tap into these other avenues outside of the traditional communication channels that we do have. And we have these ideas, we're sitting with them, but there's no opportunity we can align with. And every small opportunity we have, we ensure that we shine. So when we're given an opportunity, we should make sure we don't sleep. We're always working. We always fight to ensure that the Black excellence is reached, and we can do that. But this is my cry and my plea, is that communications, every single government organization can run an ad on television, radio, down to Soweto TV, Cape Town TV, all of these small, Tshwane TV, Gau TV, give them adverts there, let those ads run there also. To the community radio stations, let's create ads for every single government department, must have an ad running, minimum 3 ads running for different things that they're doing, because there's so much that they're doing, but it just happens behind the curtains, but we're the beneficiaries, the public of South Africa. Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you very much, Dennis. And thank you to all the team. And I'm collecting all the comments from YouTube, from the chair, and definitely very exciting. And we've shared a lot of information, but everything is coming off the cuff with Comrade Victor, Comrade Umbulelo, Comrade MOTSAMAI, Comrade Dennis, and Comrade STEFANI LOCKMAN. These are our leading transformers in the field of ICT. And we're discussing today is how do we unplug the blockages that are disturbing the flow of transformation and innovation. My comrades, this has been definitely exciting. And maybe I would just want to quickly share some of the things that we've captured before we go to our round of closing remarks. So to all the viewers and all of you that are listening out there, these are some of the comments that we've received, 62, very critical so far. We'll go through them shortly. But those of you that want to add to this, please go to www.menti.com, and it will ask you for a code. And this is the code that you would put in. And once you put in this code and you go to the next phase, it will then allow you to actually input your comments, and they will be captured. And definitely here we're talking about fast forwarding, which therefore means that this information will go out to the different government departments. We are sending out to industry, we are sending a message at the same time to all of you sitting up, to government, to industry, to society, to academia, and everyone that is responsible for driving transformation, innovation, all the patriots, that your responsibility and your mandate, just by virtue of being born in this country, that your job is to transform until the day that we are transformed. Very quick, I'm not going to go through all of these, but very quick, there was a question about and a concern that was raised about the CIOs, where they're from, And as South Africa, do we not have CIOs that can run these networks and in a way that they understand it? Why should I, as a South African, have to go and explain to a foreigner how it is important that you start appointing and using SMMEs? If you come into this country, we're not saying that we must not employ or use CIOs, but saying when you come into this country, you must understand we're a country that comes from apartheid. We're a country that's on a journey to transformation. We're a country that is committed to using Black people to roll out our infrastructure, and we are aware and want to maintain our own data sovereignty. And with that, the most important thing is that as South Africa, our transformation agenda that we've always advocated for as PBICT is that we need to move from being a largely consumer of technology to being a producer of technology, because we are saying that we can produce the best technologies, and we have done that and contributed to the world in terms of bringing in Linux, bringing in your autonomous vehicles, and all of those things. So these are the kind of things we're looking at. We also want to know what is the budget, Mbulelo, that is set aside for transformation, and the government procurement challenges by big firms, that is challenged by big firms when government says they want to use 100% Black. And we're saying to those big firms that you are in this country, we haven't transformed, we haven't reached inclusivity. So we are saying to you, where do you get this from? Where do you get the gall and the bladder? It's mean for you to challenge our government when they say that we want 100% Black. Do you ask us when in your companies, when we must buy your clothes, when we must buy your technologies and all of those things? We're not challenging you on that. So you should not challenge our government. And we're saying step away from our government. And we're saying to the government out there, let us stop suffering from scotoma, kanda mentality must fall. Your job is to transform. Read the constitution, and it allows for you to put 100% Black. It's been done before by Broadband Infraco in SA Connect. Why can't you do it as government? Let us stop hiding behind clean audits. Let's stop hiding behind non-existing and ghostly legislations and policies that are written by Treasury, and claim that there are legislation that are there. And when we ask you that which legislation, point me to that policy, you say, no, it's somewhere out there. No, that must stop. Appoint Black people. The decline in the maths rates is a very concerning issue, Victor, and I share with you on that sentiment. That was 100% correct. We are building a generation of non-problem solvers, and we are going to depend on foreigners and other people to dictate to us what solutions is it that we need. The time definitely for trusting and thinking that big companies are going to solve the problem. We've seen with the IFMS, they have failed dismally so, been given a budget of 1.7 billion without even having to take out a prototype. Yet government can't even give R1 opportunity to SMME to build a simple program. These are some of the concerns that we are having, and this is the country that we are living in. State Information Technology Agency has come up under fire quite a bit. And I think that it's time that SETA actually transforms. Maybe the mandate of removing SETA from being a procurement arm of government and being a business development wing for these big companies, that time is definitely coming to an end. Everything has an expiry date, and we're saying that that date is due soon to SETA. As for the regulator, Steph, we couldn't have said it any more and couldn't have stressed it better than you have, is that their lack of opening the individual licenses is actually anti-competitive, and it's unconstitutional at that. Their failure, MOTSAMAI, to regulate and do their job and be able to account and call people to account accordingly is a problem. And the 30% comment, and who came up with that thing? This 30% is just accepted all over. And whoever came up with that, definitely, I think they were suffering at that particular time from scotoma, and they were suffering from kanda mentality. And that 30% is not going to make us achieve the target minimum is 51% if we want to transform, and at best case 80% and even 100%. The TV white space opportunities must go to SMMEs, and we're saying that ICASA needs to have a process where they're doing this here. Your funding agencies need to start looking at funding SMMEs. You have funded the likes of your Dark Fiber Africans and all these big people that do have access to monies. So why can't you fund a simple SMME, UDNet, that is sitting in Free State, providing connectivity, using unlicensed spectrum? Why can you not fund that particular SMME, just a measly 500,000? Not asking for much, it's very little that is asking for. But yet, they turn away from your doors. We're definitely saying that there's a time for transformation. And transformation, like you said, Steph, it resonates with you in the heart eternally. And we've said, Bulelo, that the spirit of patriotism must be rebuilt, Dennis, and we need to start pushing for Black excellence. So there's a lot that we've said, but I'm inviting everyone that to go to www.menti.com, and you must use the code 924459, 924459. That's on the website, www.menti.com. And let us have your inputs in terms of what do you think of this discussion and where do you want us to go forward. Now, one thing that we can share with you here is that it's our commitment, and this is something that's written in our DNA as we're sitting, all of us here today, that the fight will never stop. It will continue. And Steph, like you've said, that this generation, this timeline, our job is to ensure that we achieve economic liberation. And that is what we're striving for, and that is why we're here today, and that is why we still exist. I think that to my panel members, we've captured everything, as you can see. We've captured the solutions, we've captured the concerns, and definitely we believe that what we've captured today, we can unblock that transformation. I'm going to give my panel members just a minute each, just to give a closing remark before we close the section. MOTSAMAI, your 1 minute summary.
Thank you, Pres. I just want to reiterate the message that I'm sending to colleagues here, is that singakwachi, singasabi, riskera taba, based on the fact that the ones who are running industries, because they have money, because they have information, we should not definitely be afraid of that. I did mention earlier around the idea of falling down the spiral of silence because somebody else has more than you. I think sitting us here and a lot of colleagues that are listening, I know that we have huge capabilities sitting with our people. We've got a lot of skills sets that are sitting with our people. The only thing that we really need to do from here now on, it's basically to make sure that we strengthen unity, we strengthen collaboration, we're sharing ideas in ensuring that we are definitely pushing the Black legacy and Black pride. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much, MOTSAMAI, for those closing words. Dennis, your message to the listeners.
Pres, thank you. My message is simple, is everybody that's in this creative services space, upskill yourself. The fourth industrial revolution is upon us. Video editors, learn how to do live streams. 3D artists, learn how to get into AR. Graphic designers, get into developing games. There's lots of opportunities in these spaces. It's time to upskill ourselves. But yet again, a message to the private sector. Black people are capable of becoming creative directors and strong art directors and leading multinational companies, and able to get service providers who are Black people who be able to help you deliver messages, and to government advertise important projects with beneficiaries who are the public. There should be advertising running, even from Comrade Mbulelo and them, your side. There should be advertising running showing that what work is BBI doing. There should be a communication running on national TV and these local TVs. It's important that we spread the message of the good work that we are doing. It makes it worthwhile for us to look and trust our government, and through communications we can do that. Thank you very much, President.
Thank you very much, Dennis, for those wise words, and a message going out to your fellow graphic designers and all of those people. And definitely also, I think you must also look into road trimming, road coping. Those are the things that we need to be looking at. Comrade Mbulelo, can we have your parting shots?
Thank you, Chair. I think as MOTSAMAI has said and staff has said, we don't have time to be apologetic. I think let's not be apologetic. And as you know, as I've been listening, I've been scrolling down some of the documents I had noted that a company like Telkom was exempted from PFMA. I further noted that on a revised triple PFA regulations, where it talks about subcontracting 30% on a budget of 30 million, it must be done where feasible. Now, can you believe how many excuses are going to be here? But what I further noted that both the Telkom and the revised PFA, triple PFA, were only approved by the same person today who's closing SAA. Very interesting. But Chair, I think my parting shot, I want to quote the former President Dutabo Mbeki, when he said we need to be vigilant of people who are trying to exploit our people. And there's a Zulu word called imigodoi. We need to be vigilant of imigodoi. We need to fight the cause. They've done it before our parents to liberate us. Let's liberate our people through ICT. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mbulelo, for those wise words. And to all of us that are sitting here, I want to quote the wise words of our current president, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, when he says, "Tuma mina," and we're saying to the president out there, "We are here, President. Nathi sicela ukuthi usithume," and we are ready. Comrade Steph.
Thank you, Dr. Rose. I think from my side, I just want to encourage the youth that they must continue. They must not stop. They must continue doing what they are doing. They must continue skilling themselves, because there will come a time when we will get in and we'll have access and we will participate, and we need to be ready. So I just would like to encourage all viewers, especially the youth that have come on looking for opportunities, that are hungry to do things, that want to participate. They can join us via our website. They can sign up. They can also come on board and lobby with us. But they mustn't stop, because when the time comes that we need them to be ready and they can access, need them there in the space. They must not go missing or leave the space. They must just continue doing what they are doing, and they will reap the rewards very soon. Thank you very much, comrades.
Thank you very much, Steph. To the youth out there, you've heard it, couldn't be said any better. We must continue upskilling ourselves. We must continue capacitating. The fight must never stop. The spear, the shield that we're carrying into battle as we go to fight for inclusivity and access and ownership is not just a fight for us, but it's a generational fight that is for generations to come. And out there, there's a message that is being sent. And that message is simple and very clear. the fight will not stop. It will never stop, and the fire will never stop burning. And we will continue until we achieve what we are here for, and that is total economic inclusivity. We want full access, and we want the ownership of both the economy and our lives, both socially and politically. Comrade Vink?
Dr. Rose, thank you very much. It was a great engagement. We just need to really ask our parents, and we are parents ourselves, and everyone else who could afford to be on this today are parents, to really encourage mathematics, really encourage the creativity of your children at home, invest in that. If you are being told that it's more important for your child, and I'm sorry for the Christians, to be at church for 3 hours on a Sunday before the child has to write mathematics on Monday, the child is not going to go to hell if the child has to study on a Sunday for mathematics to make sure he passes. Our skills, I am struggling as it is to just recruit young people, to put them into programs that will build them to be employable now and in the future. I'm struggling to get them just for the minimum requirements, such as mathematics at 60%. I can't find our Black people. We're struggling. Worse off is I work with either universities. I am at the Central University of Technology. It's a struggle for our Black kids to get entrance into that university because the math literacy, they have 40%, and according to them, these kids, when I talk to them, they believe it's a good mark, 40% math literacy. What kind of a mindset is that? Who told that child that 40% math literacy is a good mark? That child is very confident. Why is the university not taking him in? Something is fundamentally wrong at home, firstly, and then at school, because the principals and the teachers are parents. Are their kids also having mathematical literacy? Do they encourage them to do that? We will not be able to have a working force that is creative and can create solutions for us if we do not take STEM serious, and as educators, including the lecturers, if you don't even understand the definition of the acronym, then it's a problem. The curriculums at universities have to be upgraded. They have to change completely. You can't still be teaching children C++ or C# only, in fact, and web development. And when you teach them web development, these kids don't even know how to configure a server. But then they graduate with degrees. Okay, then it's an IT degree person that doesn't even understand what cloud computing is today. And the child graduated in the 2000s, and that child doesn't know what cloud computing is. Never mind client server computing. So it's a big problem that we're sitting with at universities. At schools, that's where the problem starts, because the universities cannot up their standards if they know that they're going to get a 0 pass rate at university level, and no one graduates, no graduation functions. So us as parents, seriously, we are in a deep crisis in terms of being able to give our country the skills where our people can be contributors, positive contributors to our community and to our future. Soon I'll be on pension. I don't want to be worried about my entire neighborhood being full of thugs because none of them can get a job or can create wealth for themselves. I don't want to be that pensioner that has to worry and be sitting with big walls. So I am very serious, and I take this very personal. Let's get our kids creative. Let's encourage that. Teachers, please. If your wife is a teacher, if your husband is a teacher, go tell them. They must stop discouraging our children from pure maths. Mathematics is a universal language. Doesn't matter what language you speak. 2 + 2 is 4. It equals 4. That's it. If you tell a Chinese and you write it down, give the y plus x equals whatever, they will understand that question if you put it in a mathematical equation. Mathematical equations are universal, and we need to really understand that problem solving, the basis starts with mathematics, and that goes for any career, whether you want to be a lawyer, whether you want to be an accountant, whether you want to be in IT. And for me, in closing, President, it's very critical that people also need to understand in terms of transformation. Everything that is infrastructure that used to be hardware, the servers and so forth, have now become software. So your networks now are software. How many of our graduates from university understand that? Huh? Our networks itself, the network and the server themselves, the network itself with the firewalls, it's software now. It's not an actual physical device that you carry around. How many of our kids know that? How many of our university lecturers understand that? So the curriculums is a serious problem. They have to be completely changed. Upgrade would be an understatement. And that is my message out there. And keep on delivering solutions. If you don't have a degree, it doesn't mean you cannot do the job. All you have to do is be able to practice at home and get into. There's a lot of resources on the internet for you to learn how to be a coder, programmer. There's no university in this country, I can tell you today, that can teach you to be a world-class developer. You can be self-taught. Facebook owner is dropout. He was a billionaire, I think in his second year. Bill Gates, the same thing. So it's, you don't need to speak English like myself or better in order to think or believe that you can actually deliver a product or innovation or an invention. You are a Black, African, talented person. We built the pyramids. We invented universities. We invented farming. Don't let them make you think that Egyptians are white just because all the Cleopatra movies have a white person as Cleopatra. Okay. So we've invented many, many things that's taken the world very far, put firm bases there. So believe in yourself. You are by nature intelligent. You don't need a degree and be called Dr. Rose before people must take you serious. Okay. Go and be passionate, dig deep. Practice makes perfect. Thank you, President.
Thank you very much, Vic. And I also want to thank all the listeners, now and listeners that have been participating with us. Thank you to our esteemed panelists. And the message is out there to the parents: get the children onto pure maths. Let's declare maths a universal language in our homes on our own. We don't need government to declare this for us. Let us declare maths a universal language. Science cannot work without maths. Maths is useless without science. Engineering cannot work without maths and science. And engineering is useless without science and maths. Technology needs maths, it needs science, it needs engineering. For art to strive, it needs to work on science, it needs maths, it needs technology. For us to be innovative, we can only be innovative if we understand and we talk maths, if we are believers of science and we are innovating in the space of science and using engineering and technology to make our innovations and our inventions and taking them to market so that we become the entrepreneurs that we were destined to be. This country depends on SMMEs. The world depends on SMMEs. An entrepreneur is the spine of this country. Big companies will crumble, will fall, as our esteemed Professor Chris and our futurist has told us, and that smaller companies will strive. And we've seen this happening, Vic, even in the space of software development. WhatsApp, Zoom, they started as small companies, and today, look where they are. Those companies will fall, and like Steph said, that let us continue to build the skills and let us be ready. And we will continue this fight. Today, we were watching our very first engagement on the Fast Forward platform, where we are talking about quick solutions and how do we go forward. And we're hoping that our government out there is listening, and that government, you are the market. Do not send us anywhere else. You are our market. You are our first go-to people. You are the biggest spender of communication, the biggest media buyer. You spend 15 billion per annum, 15 billion per annum on technology, just technology alone. And you've got SMMEs out there that you should be prioritizing on. That 100% of black owned businesses, that is what we are talking about. That 40%, MOTSAMAI, we are saying no to it. And that 30%, we are saying no to it. We want it all. That 15 billion is more than 80% of black people. 80% of that 15 billion must go to black people if we are to transform and if we really want to make a change and we want to make an impact. Industry, we are saying that we are ready. We have black excellence, but if you do not test us, like Dennis said, like Victor has said, then how do you know that we can't deliver the work that you've been giving away to other people? Do not make excuses and say that we are not there, that you cannot find us as SMMEs. We are here. Here we are. You see, we are there. Come to PBICT, go to SABISPA, go to Youth Economic Alliance, and we will take, because we have the knowledge and we know what is happening out there in the sector. Society, parents, youth, maths is the language, and let us declare it as a universal language. Let us continue to learn and strive for black excellence in the area of STEAMing. Academia, we are calling on you and saying that the future, with the current curriculum, the future is bleak. The future is lost. There is no future. All that is waiting for us in the future is unemployment, 10 times the amount of social inequalities, 10 times the amount of sexual problems. You, academia, must build the future. Let us sit down and let us agree that as we're sitting here and as our children are sitting at home, our children are learning absolutely nothing. Whether they're in school or out of school, the curriculum and the things they are learning, the maths lit, and those things are hopeless. I cannot be having my son learning something I learned how to draw a locust or a butterfly back then. Let us get more into it. With that closing, Vic, I want to share just a story with you that my son is 10 years old. He had broke his phone and there was a few other broken phones around the house. So 3 days ago, I get back and get to the house and he's like, hey, Dad, I fixed my phone and I can fix phones now. And he fixed his cousin's phone and all he was doing is using YouTube. And that's it, and that is what we want to do. Comrades, thank you very much to our listeners and to the whole of South Africa. Keep safe and let us beat this coronavirus. Thank you very much, panelists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. Goodbye, everybody.